Today on Rescue 911. Who can you trust when domestic violence escalates?
The windshield in the van was completely shattered. She seemed extremely frightened.
Victim Services helps the family through their emotional trauma.
Unless someone will press charges, there's nothing we can do.
Plus,
He loves to brush his teeth.
our little boy's toothbrush is wedged dangerously deep in his throat.
What happened? It's a protocol that you never remove anything that's impaled.
On Rescue 911.
The police department in Austin, Texas, has created a unique counseling program that provides immediate on-scene care whenever an incident of domestic violence is reported. This story is not a recreation. It's a look at a family violence team as they provide crisis intervention on a weekend in late May of 1994.
Police department, open the door, please.
Hello.
Evening. Is your boyfriend here? Who's been beating you up? What's his name? There's no reason in the world you should have to put up with this sort of abuse.
Victims are very much in denial of what's going on in the situation, and they don't want to look at what's really happening.
Somebody called in and said that he was beating you up. We get here and it's pretty obvious that somebody has beat you up. If he's been beating on you, the law says we're going to take him to jail. This has happened before. She's got the phone number to her and stuff. She's had problems before.
We know that you're scared, and we know that people are afraid to file charges, so we do that for them, so it's not your fault, okay? So what's his name? Spell that last name.
Sometimes they're saying, I don't want them arrested, I just want them to stop. And it's very simplistic thinking because it's not going to happen.
If they continue in this pattern, if they don't get some help, they could end up dead.
Melinda went back to her apartment the next day and refused any further help. When we continue,
The windshield in the van was completely shattered. She seemed to be extremely frightened that something was going to happen in the back of the house.
Sorry, the bank took forever.
You went into the bank?
I gotta get my paycheck in.
Mine was in 2 days ago, and I never go in a bank.
What?
I get paid 2 days back. My net's been all access accounts. I never bank.
So that put it in the budget.
Not mine.
What do you mean?
I didn't spend as much as you think.
It cost me. I took an interest rate.
For 9-1.
Must have the promo code.
911.
May 31st, 10:58 p.m. Another call for help comes into the Austin police.
I was very angry and threw something at my car and it broke the windshield. Did you live there too? Yes, I did. 3616 on a family service that just occurred. They're probably putting it to 7-Eleven.
41-year-old Jan Barstow had driven to a nearby convenience store and called for help. Officer David Espinoza responds.
The windshield in the van was completely shattered. She seemed to be extremely frightened that something was going to happen in the back of the house. We went with her straight over to their home.
Yeah.
The man Jan shares a house with had broken her windshield during an argument.
We've been out to this address a number of times, and each time there's been some sign that there's been violence, but unless someone will press charges, or unless we can determine what's happened, that someone has assaulted someone else, there's nothing we can do. Well, finally, she produced a photograph of what has been going on. And I mean, it's not pretty at all.
Victim Services counselors Patty McDavid and Ray Ramirez arrived to talk to the family.
Well, our window of opportunity is at the time that they are totally emotionally engrossed in the incident that's occurred.
I don't know exactly how to explain what happens. He goes into rages, or he just gets angry and wants to force everything to be his way.
Sterling was in bed on crying.
And Sterling is whom?
My baby brother.
That's usually when he gets angry. That's when Sterling cries.
And after about an hour of crying, of hearing the child cry, I came downstairs to find out what was going on. And she said, well, nobody wants to watch the child. And she was working on the computer.
He started yelling at Mom, and he told her to get out, and they stormed downstairs, and he slammed this door.
She did what she normally does, and that's she gets in the car and she drives off and leaves everybody here.
And she started back out, and Leo went out there with Sterling, and he got a rock, and he told her to open the door, or he was gonna break a window.
I had a rock in my hand, and I threw it.
The kids were crying. They were trying to stop him.
I'm not a violent person. I have a very, reputable position at work and everything.
It happens a lot, but it never really gets this bad. They usually don't. Mom usually doesn't get hurt very often.
I thought it was getting better until tonight. And I don't know what set it off.
That's not an issue because the important thing is that you're taking the steps now to try to protect yourself.
Am I supposed to go pay rent someplace else while somebody's living in this house and I'm paying for half of it? That's not fair either. Of course this is wrong, of course I'm throwing rocks, but I also shouldn't be sitting in this car.
You're afraid of what?
I'm afraid he'll come back and hurt one of us because he'll be mad.
What makes you think that?
Because he's left before.
Mm-hmm.
And he always comes back and then they fight some more.
When he comes back? Everybody was a victim in that household. And when I say that, I mean not just once, over and over and over and over.
We want to go ahead and talk a little bit about how you're feeling and what you would like to have happen. You know, what you would like to see your mom do at this point, as well as what she's prepared to do to help keep you guys safe.
I'm glad something finally did happen, just as this happened before. He's very violent sometimes for the littlest things.
Throwing things, throwing me against the car, or throwing me on the ground, or grabbing me by the head, or choking.
One other time that he got all mad at my mom, and they went outside and he threw her on the ground and he started beating her up.
I kept waiting for the black eyes and broken bones, but this is going to lead to something, and this is going to lead to just straight death without that in between if it doesn't stop.
Jan.
The next morning, Ray follows up with a phone call to Jan.
Just being able to get a hold of them is refreshing because a lot of times the next day you can't find them. Sometimes they're at the jail bailing the person out. I would like for you to come down here because Leo could be released within an hour.
Hi, how are you today?
Jan's father, Bob Barstow, accompanies her and her 13-year-old daughter, Jenna.
Do you want to try to get into safe shelter? Do you want order?
I don't necessarily want to keep Leo away from his son or us. He's fine with us most of the time.
She was.
He doesn't know why he does these things.
It's kind of like holding somebody over a cliff and feel your grip losing, thinking this person could die.
I think it's harmful for a child to have a parent that they see every day suddenly disappear from their lives.
It's not nearly as harmful as seeing outbursts, violence, and assault. If this keeps going, those rages are going to be so terrifying to that child that he's not going to know whether he can trust him or not either. And he feels that.
He's kind of scares Sterling so much.
And the other kids as well. So what I would suggest is that you try to get out of there.
I've lived out of boxes before. The first time. It's hard on us. And the kids don't deserve that.
I could rent a house for you.
Oh, God, that drains y'all so much.
Well, Davey, you're my daughter. Doesn't make a difference.
I told him last night the reason I'm in situations like this is because of the kind of parenting that I got. And this is the man.
I taught her everything she knows.
Yeah.
It's very likely that Jan's pattern started at an early age when her mother and I were still living together, and we didn't know how to handle and communicate things between ourselves.
I've been through lots of counseling, and now I feel like the father that I wish I had when I was growing up. So I appreciate that, yeah.
I don't know how to solve the problems because I never saw my parents solve them. They just argued and my dad left. And with Leo, he'll blow up or he'll argue, and I'm the one that runs the car and leaves.
My bedroom was next to y'all's, Dad, when we were kids. I heard Mom screaming out, "Bob, don't, you're killing me." And it scared the daylights out of me when I was a kid. I couldn't come over and do anything. And that's when I got a piece of paper and I wrote on it, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." And it was about you because I'd never felt it before. So now I'm giving it to the kids. But I can't let that happen because they'll find relationships to resolve this problem they're going through.
You see a generational domino effect that seems endless. Right at that moment was an opportunity to go ahead and interrupt that cycle of violence. He's going to be out of jail. He could be getting out of jail right now. So the best time to do it is right now.
I will not let this go on again the way that I have allowed it in the past. I will file every time there is something like this. I've seen the value in it now. And I need to do that for my own protection and for the children, so I'm clear about that.
Jan decides to file the police report needed to investigate a past incident.
Thank you.
I want them to have a supportive family, one that nurtures, one that doesn't cause fear and fright. We don't have that right now. Lee wouldn't have been taken away if he hadn't have gotten out of control. The only problem.
Using locast.org, the nonprofit that makes local over-the-air broadcast. Just $5 each month.
As it ever was, I think it's the most loving thing I could do. By having him have to look at himself honestly, instead of being part of his cover-up.
I hope Leo goes to counseling, and I hope my mom goes to counseling with him, and that maybe they won't live together, but they'll still be friends.
This matter of passing things down from one generation to another doesn't stop until someone takes the responsibility to learn a different pattern. And if Jan doesn't, she's going to fail her children.
2.5 months later, Jan and her children moved to a new house of their own. A restraining order prevents Leo from having any contact with them.
I always thought that the battering occurred among minorities and people with less money and less resources. Then when I went to the Battered Women's Center, there were these women. They were just like me.
A lot of times, affluent, educated individuals cover things up a lot more and tolerate it because they don't want the social stigma.
Hey, let's be a
Victim services, I'm so glad they're there. If I had known that they'd be as helpful as they are, I think I'd have stepped in earlier.
Helping people who are being abused is the kind of cause that everyone should take up. Because if we can ensure that everyone's safe, it makes it a much better world to live in, doesn't it?
Next,
I tried to see if I could move it. And
there was no way out.
bit of money. They had it.
Comfortable and not expressing it.
Ow.
Taking it.
While Kim Dittmeyer was at home in Germantown, Maryland, looking after each year.
True Crime Network.
Each year in this country, nearly 8,000 children die from preventable injuries. As parents try to make our homes safe from anything that could pose a threat to our kids, well, on January 12, 1993, while Kim Dittmeyer was at home in Germantown, Maryland, looking after her 2-year-old son, Kevin, she found out that in certain situations, almost any object can be dangerous.
Cat hooter, okay?
Gotta eat some lunch. I don't want you to fall out of the chair. Pooter usually is not a very good eater. Good boy. I can beg him to take one bite. He may take a bite. You take a bite of your sandwich for me? One more bite and I'll be happy. You take one more bite?
You don't want any more sandwich? Where are you going, boy? Where are you going? Come here.
Finally got to the point where, okay, I'm done eating. I'm not sitting here any longer begging you to come back to the table. And so I told Pooter, let's go and brush our teeth, which he's very excited about because he loves to brush his teeth.
Brush on your teeth, but you like it.
I think he likes the toothpaste more than anything. Because normally he'll suck the toothpaste off if I let him.
Stir it, and then we'll rinse your mouth, okay? That's a big boy brushing your own teeth. Are you okay?
It was a real typical cry like I'd heard him do when he's frustrated. But then I thought the toothbrush is in his mouth.
What happened? What happened? Oh my goodness, gotta stitch you up.
I tried to see if I could move it, and it was definitely stuck in the back of his throat. I could tell the toothbrush was definitely deep in because it wasn't sticking out as much as it should.
It's gotta be your throat. Oh my goodness. You gotta listen to me, honey, okay? You gotta listen really close. Keep your arms out like you don't touch the toothbrush.
I knew if he flailed at it, he could rupture something.
And he fell on it, it stuck in the back of his throat. And he didn't realize.
It actually sounded good to hear him cry because I knew he was breathing.
Emergency responders were immediately dispatched to the scene.
My mind went back to a Rescue 911 show that I saw.
You don't cry, it won't hurt so bad.
Through the whole show, they kept impressing on how important it was that if we are ever stabbed, to leave the object in because it may be acting as a natural cork.
Don't touch the toothbrush. I'm coming right back. Coming right back. I'm right here. I'm right here. Oh my God, they're not here yet. Don't touch the toothbrush. Keep your arms out, okay? Oh God, please help us. Okay, there we are.
Within 4 minutes, rescue workers, including paramedic Sherry Markwood, arrived to treat the little boy.
Looked into his mouth to make sure that his airway was not obstructed, and it wasn't. But I could not see the bristles of the toothbrush. It was buried that far.
Thank you. I'm coming.
I was amazed. I had not seen anything impaled into a mouth like that before. But it's a protocol that you never remove anything that's impaled. You package it to where it's stabilized and it won't come out by itself. You let the doctors take it out.
2-year-old Kevin was briefly examined at a local hospital, then transferred to Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., and put under the care of emergency physician Bob Belfer.
It was a perplexing problem. With penetrating injuries to the mouth, there's a death rate of up to 30%. I urgently wanted to obtain some consultation with doctors who may have been more familiar with this type problem.
I know it hurts real bad, honey.
Kevin's father followed the boy and his mother to the hospital.
It was a little frustrating just because he was there, he was in pain. The bleeding was picking up a little bit, but I could see they were doing everything that they could.
This looks to be only millimeters away. It's very close to the carotid artery. I don't think we can be sure that if we remove that, there wouldn't be significant bleeding.
Ear, nose, and throat specialist Dr. Sharon Tomasky was one of the experts called in.
It's always difficult to talk to the parents. We must tell them every potential complication that could happen right next to and touching the carotid artery. And we don't think we're going to have to pinch it off. But if we did have to pinch...
None of the doctors had ever seen this before. They knew that they had to pull the toothbrush out, but the biggest problem was how do we get it out and hold the artery together?
And we'll do our very best. And we'll have...
It was pretty heart-wrenching to know that when he has the surgery that's supposed to help him, it may kill him.
Everybody's safe, still says and shake. Everybody's ready.
Dr. Kenneth Grunfast headed up the surgical team that performed the delicate operation.
Perfect.
The critical decision was that the safest thing to do would be putting a loop around each of the 3 main blood vessels and then going into the mouth and removing the toothbrush so that in the event there was major bleeding, we would be all ready to just tie off the blood vessels and he wouldn't lose that much blood.
Here's the blue loop around the common carotid artery, and this loop is around the external carotid.
More than 2 hours passed with no word.
Oh God, I'm so scared.
Okay.
Is it coming out easily?
It's okay.
See any bleeding?
Not yet. Okay, got it. Okay.
Great. Mr. and Mrs. Dittmeyer?
I think the hospital did a great job. All the staff kept us real calm, kept us very informed, and they were just the best at what they do. Pooter came out just fine without any injury at all, without any side effects at all. Everybody kept saying, you are so lucky. You are so incredibly lucky to have this kid alive. And they've asked me several times, how did you know to leave that toothbrush alone? And I always told them something I saw on Rescue 911. And it's very important that I did, because Pooter would not be here today had I not seen that show.
Exactly the right thing. If she had struggled to get toothbrush out, he could have bled to death right in front of her eyes.
Whoa, that was a very good eye, though.
It would have been a horrible thing to have lost him. You just realize that you appreciate him and love him more than you probably did.
You ready? Are you ready?
Don't ever let children run around with things in their mouths.
What a hit, Pooter.
When I look at my little boy, I see a little kid who came this close to being dead. And he just continues to amaze me every day. I think he's the smartest, cutest little guy in the world. And I'm so glad that he's here.
They're the first ones called in after a chilling discovery, following a trail of clues to track down killers.
Home broadband is critical for connecting to jobs, healthcare services, virtual classrooms, and much more. If you are struggling to afford your internet bills, a temporary government program may be able to help.
You know, that was the most expensive lubricant I ever got.
Your husband's going to start wondering. Crime happens every day. We're here to tell you about it. If you're a serious true crime addict, The Daily Crime has you covered. The Daily Crime, an all-new podcast from Vault Studios.
Today on Rescue 911, innocent children are in danger. A neighbor's careless aim explodes into a deadly disaster.
It was just a nightmare unfolding right in front of my face.
I loved my sister and I didn't want to see her die.
Plus, a go-kart crash nearly kills a little boy.
His chances of survival are not that good. I was just in a state of shock.
And I don't think he had more than an hour or two left.
On Rescue 911.
We begin in Ackworth, Iowa on the afternoon of May 12, 1994, when a young brother and sister went next door to play with a friend on his family's farm. Around
Around 6:20 p.m., Stephen Montalbano returned home from work.
I live on a farm. I've got horses, cows, cats, chickens, ducks. We've been having a lot of trouble with dogs killing our chickens and ducks. The last people that lived next door, their dog killed 15 or 20 chickens.
Get out of there!
I just assumed the worst again. I was shooting behind the dog. I wasn't trying to kill the dog, I was trying to scare it off. I couldn't believe it was happening. It was just a nightmare unfolding right in front of my face, but it was real.
My finances are very out of control.
Having a family and the finances is a tough balancing act.
You're sitting here at the end of the month looking at all the bills thinking there's got to be a better way.
Introducing the NetSpend Prepaid MasterCard. There's no credit check and no cost.
My coworker.
NetGator is a multifunctional face and neck cover that helps protect you from harmful elements. Right now, and
When a man trying to scare away a dog shot his rifle into a shed, he did not know his stepson, Andy Neal, had been playing there with friends.
Gee, I was scared when the bullets came because I thought I was the one who was going to get hit.
My son came out of the A-frame screaming. I was just in a panic. I thought I'd shot my own boy.
8-year-old Jeannie had been playing in the shed with her 9-year-old brother, Andrew.
My sister fell, screaming. I felt bad because there's bullet holes in them that had blood coming out. I was going to go run for help, and instead I remembered something from a show to help people stop bleeding. And so I took off my shirt and put it on the hole that was bleeding, closer to her chest. I loved my sister and I didn't want to see her die.
Stephen's wife, Barbara, had been next door at the neighbors.
I heard gunshots. I was just terrified. And then I heard my son Andy scream that Jeannie had been shot.
I couldn't believe it was happening. It was just a nightmare unfolding right in front of my face, but it was real. She was shot. She said, I'm gonna die. I said, no, you're not gonna die. Everything's gonna be okay. And then I saw that she was shot in the side of her chest. All I could think of was they killed a kid. I felt guilty, I felt ashamed. It's really hard to look at a little girl that's been shot, especially if you're the one responsible for shooting her. It's real painful.
It just seemed impossible that something like this could happen.
Your mommy's coming, huh?
Here's this little bitty girl. She's so sweet and so frail.
You're not gonna die.
The second bullet had gone into her back. My biggest fear was that it was in her spine. I couldn't think of a more horrible thing for a little girl than to be paralyzed for the rest of her life.
Jeannie's mother, Emma G. McAllister, rushed over as soon as she heard what had happened.
To see that bullet hole there was really an obscenity. A violation of a very sweet child. And very frightening because there was no exit wound.
Yes, we just made a call for an ambulance. Yes. Okay, we've got rescue en route, but we're so far out that maybe an airplane would be better. Okay, well, we'll check on that. Also, who was on the other end of the gun? Who I was. Okay, you're the one that shot her? Yes, this is an ambulance.
Warren County Sheriff's Deputy Gene Kuhn arrived within 11 minutes.
When I saw the wound in the chest, my concerns grew. A .22 rifle shell can ricochet off bone.
Stay with me, Jeannie.
There's a very strong possibility that the lung was injured or the heart was involved and that she could possibly die.
I did not let myself think about her dying, but in my heart, I was scared to death. I was afraid that she would be taken.
A Pleasantville volunteer medic unit arrived, led by EMT Chad Bennett.
First thing that's going through my mind, you kind of wonder why. What happened, you know? A child that young doesn't deserve to be shot.
It just tore my heart out. I would have traded places with her in a second, in a heartbeat, because she was so scared. I've never seen her so scared.
Here it is. I don't want to look at it. I see it. Just take it.
It was very distressing. It was so needless. Just a reckless, impulsive act, and a little girl was shot. People should think before they shoot. There were 3 children that could have died that day, and he'll have to live with that for the rest of his life.
8-year-old Jeannie McAllister was transferred to an Airlife helicopter and taken to Mercy Hospital Medical Center, where she was examined by trauma surgeon Richard Toon.
What's her last vital signs? Blood pressure, please?
102.
We did not know whether she could die at any time. We have to treat every patient that way when they arrive in the trauma room.
Check for exit. 1, 2, 3. Nice deep breath.
Okay, there are no exit ones here? Okay, the bullet's in here. We'll need an x-ray of the chest right away. These are the x-rays of your daughter that show the bullet that's left in her body. You'll see that right here, the bullet is just over the spine in the back. The x-rays show that the bullet had missed the spine by just a quarter of an inch. An inch to the right, it would have severed her spine and she would have been paralyzed for life.
It hadn't hit any major veins or arteries. There was no major nerve damage, which was amazing. I felt relieved enough to sit down and just cry then, because if I could see the bullet away from her spine was fine.
Now, if she's running and playing in a playground and falls down.
Because the bullet in the leg was so accessible, we very quickly took the bullet out with just a single stitch. The bullet near her spine would cause more damage to take it out than to leave it in.
Jeannie was very heavily sedated, but she tightened her grip on my hand, and she stirred and said, "Mommy," which was the most beautiful sound in the whole world.
During Jeannie's recovery, Stephen went to visit her at the hospital.
How you doing?
I forgive Steve because it was an accident. He didn't do it on purpose.
She's doing really well today. I don't hold animosity toward him. Steve was, I think, as emotionally shattered by all of this as Jeannie was physically shattered.
Oh, look at his fin.
A month has passed. Although Jeannie is still suffering back pain, she's expected to fully recover from her injuries.
I thought that I was really gonna die. If I had one thing to say about the people who saved my life, I would say thank you for saving my life.
Every time you pick up a firearm, you're taking a risk of shooting yourself, shooting another person. You can drop a firearm, it can go off and kill you, kill somebody across the street. You ever fight you? Firearms are dangerous. I don't want to deal with maybe somebody else getting hurt.
Dad, Jeannie, is Daddy there?
Jeannie's family and ours have become friends. Instead of blame being put out, everyone pulled together and love was put out and support was put out.
Jeannie, cover of the West.
And we've all pulled together to try and really help each other.
Go get it.
Next.
We never go anywhere in our car without our seatbelts. Why I overlooked it and riding a go-kart, I don't know.
Take a look at these age spots. They seem to bet. Just find introductory colors and free or celebrate. We're in love. Breeze is touchless, oil-free, paraben-free, never tested on animals, and the cosmetics are made in the USA.
It's fast, it's easy.
With Breeze, you can look years younger fast. Remember, you'll be using 10 times less makeup with 3 times more coverage. You can't get this look with regular old-fashioned makeup.
It's just a light veil that goes on my skin, and I feel like my skin can breathe.
Use the promo code right now to get free shipping and get Breeze to try it home for a full 30 days for just $19.95.
This is the easiest makeup application I've ever done. Literally a breeze.
Now, there is a new and exciting way to look dramatically younger with Breeze. Luminous is not available in stores. You can only get this exclusive offer here, so don't wait.
Order your new cordless Breeze now. Call 1-800-715-9842 or go to getbreeze.com.
Coming up next on True Crime Network.
Unfortunately, when children are born, they don't come with a handbook. On November 6, 1993, when friends and neighbors Steve Scott and Faith Carrizales of Wichita Falls, Texas, agreed to take their kids out for a drive, they had nothing but the best intentions.
I didn't feel AJ was old enough to ride a car by himself. There were no harnesses, no seat belts or anything. But we agreed to allow him to ride with Melissa.
5-year-old A.J. Carrizales was put on a cushion in front of 11-year-old Melissa Scott.
He's my only child. I need him just as much as he needs me.
Be careful, have fun. See you on the backside.
I took off with AJ and he was, screaming and yelling and just having a blast. AJ was all smiles. He just thought that was the neatest thing. He'd never been in a go-kart before.
Everybody was having a blast, just looking back at each other and making the corners and just excited because this is something that they just hadn't done every day. We got through with the first session and they were cold, but they were still wanting to ride more. I said, well, maybe one more time.
They had a real fast go-kart. I was trying to catch up with them, but they were way ahead of me. My brother's still right behind me, just making faces and, scaring me. I had the gas all the way down, and we were going awfully fast. It seemed like 50 miles an hour. I came around the corner real fast, and then I slid over.
All of a sudden, there was just a quick turn right in front of us.
What happened? AJ, hey.
It just happened so quick. My head just went, it just popped or something, because I hit it just head on.
What happened? What happened?
I didn't see the actual impact, but AJ was very limp and very listless. We weren't real alarmed, we just thought he got the wind knocked out of him.
Put your head down, buddy. Be real easy.
He had no visible injuries. There was no blood, no bruises, no, nothing.
Be easy.
He was just kind of moaning, like when you got socked in the stomach. And he said, Mommy, I don't want to ride the go-karts anymore. Please, don't bring me back here anymore. Just take me home. Let me go to bed.
I'll give you a call. We'll get back. Okay?
AJ's the kind of kid that takes a knock and he gets up running. So if something knocks him down and keeps him down, then that's an alarm for me.
Against AJ's objections, Faith decided to take her son to Wichita General Hospital. Robert Penson was the emergency physician on duty that night.
The nurse was concerned the child was injured by the way he was holding his abdomen. He also was complaining that actually he was all right and just really wanted to go home.
Show me where you heard that. Right here?
I stayed in the waiting area with Brad and Melissa. The hospital didn't look very busy at that time, but all of a sudden there was more doctors, and there was more nurses, and there was people moving around at a faster pace. And that was when the goosebumps came up on me, and I knew that something was not good.
AJ was given a CAT scan to check for abdominal injuries.
Yeah, Mommy's right here. We'll go home when we're done, okay? It's not going to take that long.
He had an extensive laceration of his liver due to all the potential complications. His chances of survival are not that good. To make a decision is his best care.
I was just in a state of shock. And I didn't want to believe that it was that bad.
Whether he was going to live or whether he wasn't. That was the time to say bye to AJ.
We stood there until the helicopter was out of sight, wondering if you'll be able to see him when you get there.
AJ was taken by Care Flight helicopter to Cook Fort Worth Children's Medical Center, 120 miles away. There, he was put under the care of pediatric surgeon Charles Snyder.
He had a massively distended abdomen by the time I saw him, and I don't think he had more than an hour or two left. One of those veins that drain the blood out of the liver back into the body was ripped, and it's a difficult area surgically to get at. He also had essentially torn off half of his liver, and we completed that tear and removed that non-functional segment of the right part of his liver. We did everything we could to try to keep it up, but his blood pressure did drop a few times, and he may have had some poor blood flow to some of the organs in his body, including his brain, and we just won't know.
He could have brain damage, lung damage, kidney failure. They didn't know if the repairs they made to his liver would hold. 95 to 99% of injuries that serious don't survive. They had him medicated in a comatose-like state because they didn't want him to awake and be moving around. And all I could do was just look at all of the digital numbers on all of the equipment that was hooked up to him, just willing him to get higher and to get better.
Oh, God.
All I could think of was how bad I wanted him to make it. And then how would I deal with having a child that may not remember me, may not remember how to talk, or eat or feed himself or dress himself.
3 days had passed since the accident.
There wasn't but one thing to do at that point, and that was just pray for AJ. It just seems like there was a heaven-sent blessing for that little boy.
Mommy, open his eyes. Oh, you did? KJ. KJ, Mommy's here.
He's such a fighter and he's so brave. He rarely ever complained. And the way he recovered and bounced back. He captured a lot of heart. Made a lot of friends.
Hey, boys and girls, it's AJ!
Although AJ did lose the sight in his right eye as a result of his injuries, his recovery has been remarkable.
He's doing fantastic. running 90 to nothing. I can't keep up with him. It's just like it was before the accident. I always say I need a harness for him.
I was worried about him. He's my friend and he's nice. I'm glad he's still here.
Everybody ready for some cake?
We're home.
He can talk to me and he can tell me he loves me and he knows who I am. And that means more than anything. I thank God I took him to a hospital. If I'd taken him home, like he wanted, he would have bled to death.
I got him in the garage, knee pads and arm pads, and I could be safe. I go in a go-kart.
We never go anywhere in our car without our seatbelts. And why I overlooked it and didn't think through enough to see the possibility of any danger in riding a go-kart, I don't know. That's something I have to live with.
My little girl, Melissa, had an airbag. It was H.A. Cortisonus.
He's a miracle child. I feel good about that.
They're best of friends. They always will be. They'll never forget each other.
First ones.
They injured themselves or gotten in accidents, they just seem like angels of mercy. And they're great.
When you know what to do when disaster strikes, first responders break down real emergencies. It's the one show you can't afford to miss. Rescue 911. Next on True Crime Network. First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. Disaster strikes a small town. A minor brush fire turns into a major emergency.
He was in pretty bad shape and I knew I'd done it.
And a fireman's life is on the line.
He had blood coming from his ears and from his nose.
Plus, an exhibition turns deadly when it leads to heart failure.
When I got to him, I assumed it was all over. This was a critical call. All we could do was try.
On Rescue 911.
We begin in the small town of Blue Mound, Texas. Dispatcher Kathy Enriquez's whole family works for the local fire department there, so whenever she takes a call like the one she got on the morning of March 14th, 1994, she has reason to be concerned.
Blue Mound 911, what is your emergency? Someone called and said there was a grass fire north of our city. My job is to answer every phone call that comes in. I'm the 911 operator, dispatcher, and court clerk. I dispatched the Blue Mound brush truck to the scene.
Lieutenant Mike Briggles had been a member of the force for 4 years.
The train that day was extremely muddy, and my truck was the only truck around that had four-wheel drive capability. Our fire department is strictly volunteer. It's our protocol to wait until another firefighter responds to the station before we can leave. And the first person to arrive that day was Matt Enriquez. Matt's a real nice guy, and he's a real good friend of mine.
What's your big? That's not pretty quick.
Normal precautions on a brush truck consist of a tethering device, also reverse lights coupled with a reverse beeper, which we hadn't installed yet. At the time we got there, the fire wasn't that big. Me and Matt assumed it would be an easy one to tap out. There was fire on the right and left side, and the flames increased to about 10 feet high. It was soggy, and there was extremely good chance of getting caught in the mud. And it got to the point where I thought it was dangerous to go any further. I did not want to get my truck stuck when I was so close to the head of the fire. The way the truck is situated, I cannot see directly behind the truck. So I did not know where Matt was standing. On my last reverse, I felt the right rear of the truck bounce up. When I exited the truck, I turned around and I did not see Matt on the tailboard, and I instantly knew what had happened.
The next thing I heard was Mike screaming, "Medic, medic, I need a medic, and I need a medic now." Copy, care flight.
I knew he was dispatching. It was his mother. I did not tell dispatch that it was Matt. I just told that we had a firefighter down.
I know it's Matt. I just know that's what's going on. I gotta call care flight. Matt was supposed to be at work. I had no idea he was on the scene, but I knew it was Matt immediately. I knew it was my son. It was just instinct.
When we continued, he was unconscious. His helmet was cracked and broken, and the first thing that went through my mind was how I'd killed one of my friends, one of my firefighters.
Sorry, I had the bank took forever.
You went into the bank?
I gotta get my paycheck in.
Mine was into with access
Injuries. If you were a loved one. 19 years old when she was...
His helmet was cracked and broken, and the first thing that went through my mind was how I'd killed Matthew Enriquez, one of my friends, one of my firefighters.
Midnight Fire Department responding, medical emergency. Pat couldn't relieve me. She's not trying to dispatch. I felt absolutely helpless. I wanted to run and scream. I wanted to get out of there and get to him. It's my child. But I couldn't. I couldn't leave. I was amazed that he actually lifted me and said, "I need to get out of here." I was very glad that he was at least alive. There was a lot of fire around us, and it's moving a couple miles an hour. I needed to get him some medical attention real quick, but nobody could get to us. He stood up by himself and got in the truck, and that was good enough for me. I was going to get him out of there and get him across to the command center.
All right, you in? Yeah, okay. We'll get you out of here.
He was in pretty bad shape, and I knew I'd done it.
I ran him over in the fire truck. I had to go out. Matt, you hear me?
It was very evident that I ran over his head. It was very evident that I backed over his midsection with the tire.
I know it's going to hurt.
It's a feeling I'll never forget. He was one of my firefighters that was under my command.
I know it's going to hurt.
And I felt that I'd hurt him real bad, if not kill him.
C1, any change in status on the firefighter?
Yes, sir,
10-9 means I can't understand, you're gonna have to repeat. I ask again.
Down to C1, firefighter status.
They kept saying 10-9 because they knew I was dispatching.
City Secretary Pat Stokes was a friend of Kathy's.
It was horrible to have to watch the pain she was going through, knowing this was her child. I was so impressed at her professionalism. She stayed right on her job. She did right what she was supposed to do. And there were tears. There was fear. It was just like you could cut it with a knife, but she was there.
Matt's friend, Regional Ambulance Paramedic Jim Davis, arrived within 10 minutes.
I kneeled down next to him and I asked him who he was because I couldn't recognize him. He had blood coming from his ears and from his nose. He had a large abrasion across the lower part of his rib cage and he was bleeding internally. So we can stop in the field, we can only slow it down. I was concerned he might not make it.
While Mike returned to fight the fire, 20-year-old Matt Enriquez was taken by Care Flight helicopter to a nearby hospital. Kathy joined her husband Manuel at the hospital as soon as she was relieved from duty.
But when you're told that your son being ran over, you feel like you lost your heart.
No, not yet.
Because when you love someone, you don't want to see them hurt.
And as soon as I walked through the door, he said, Mama. And he said, I kept thinking, God, please don't let me die. I want to go home. I kissed him and I cried and I rubbed his head and talked to him.
You're gonna be all right, man.
But I was totally relieved because when he said Mama, I knew he was all right.
Although their son suffered back and neck injuries in the accident, amazingly, Matt's only broken bones were in his jaw and ankle.
Did the fish?
In the months that have passed, Matt has been slowly recovering from his injuries.
I still have a lot of neck pain and back pain, and my shoulder still hurts a lot. But other than that, I'm doing a lot better. My family gave me a lot of support. My fiance helped me recover a lot. I've seen how much she really cared for me, and that if I was hurt or healthy or what, she'd always be by my side.
5 months after the accident, Matt and his girlfriend, Tabitha Jackson, were married.
If you go through traumas like this, it makes your relationship stronger. You're more aware of how special it is and how precious it is and how fragile it is. And we have to take each day like it's our last. Because I could lose him at any time.
The reason the accident happened is because there was a lack of communication on the fire scene. I should have told Mike that I was getting off and where I was going to be. I wouldn't have been wearing a helmet. When the truck backed up over my head, it probably crushed my skull because it cracked the helmet. The mud helped out a lot also because it was an extra cushion. Safety first. Because if you get hurt, there's no way you can help anyone else out.
Firefighting is dangerous. Accidents happen. Some are freak accidents, some are misjudgment, and some are just flat mistakes.
Well, the first time you got wet washing the truck, right? I'm still amazed that Matt is alive. Anybody that's run over by a fire truck, this shouldn't come out like he did. So I'm very happy that he made it through that day.
Thanks for using locals.org, the nonprofit that makes local over-the-air broadcast available to everyone. Just
First,
now look at Lumen.
Precision Nomad tip.
It's all the guesswork.
Luminous is... Have to try it. You will never go back to your old routine.
Plus, get $72 in free full-size premium gifts, including full pay your return shipping. Time is counting.
Bob Jones and his father Ted discovered that the true test of community strength is the ability to pull together when every moment counts.
Driven by Bob Jones, owned and exhibited by Ted Jones. Take off your hat, Ted, to show them where you are.
My father, he used to hire mule work. I was kind of embarrassed to be seen leading a mule when everybody else is leading a horse, but years ago I decided to go along with him and help him out.
Ted Jones was the announcer at the timed obstacle competition that day. Tony DePalmer was a longtime friend of Ted's.
Okay, now let's give her a chance. Back in between the rows.
Ted had a heart attack a number of years ago, but he didn't seem to suffer any recurrences.
I don't know if she does funerals or not. Oh, the paper's on the barrel and she's out the door. That's 38 seconds. Mary's got it so far. Who's the next contestant out there? Uh-oh, my son. Here he comes.
As soon as you come through the doorway, you're racing against the clock. Karen Munson was ahead of me, and she was just flying around there, and I got really nervous because I thought that there was no possible way I could beat her time.
Okay, folks, let's be quiet. These mules don't back up the best at all.
The most difficult part is definitely the stopping and backing.
Keep down in there. Come on, let's cheer him on there. Here he comes, around, across the plywood.
Bobby set the new #1 time. He was able to shave seconds off of Karen's time, which was amazing.
He thinks us people are getting old.
You think you can do it faster?
My father was downplaying it, and speaking of how fast his mules went around there. Imagine if they had a real driver on there. So I went and harassed him, and it didn't take much to stir him up.
Some mules are more afraid of me than they are.
Bob Jones is one of the most competitive people I know,
Everybody out there wants to see you try.
aside from his dad.
He commented, well, it takes an older guy just to come down and show one of you young fellas how to do it. So he came down out of the booth, and I went up to do the announcing.
They got the paper off the barrel. They're doing pretty good. There's the plywood. He's got it.
My father was running a really good time.
Watching the event was the Joneses' former neighbor, Wendy Chapin.
We were kind of cheering for Ted, but we were kind of picking on him because they were older too. You know, the younger team against the older team. Everybody thought that he had fallen over because the time he had done it. I belonged to a volunteer rescue squad, so when I jumped up, I thought, okay, this is it. This is what I was trained to do. But I was shaken and I was really nervous.
Immediately, I assumed that he had had a heart attack a couple of years ago. The doctor had told him if he had one more major heart attack, that was going to be it. I picked up his head and he didn't have a pulse at that time. And I knew then that we were going to have to do CPR on him.
1 and 2.
When I got to him, I assumed it was over.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. 1 and
I was not an EMT at that time. I had just joined, so it was my first time ever doing CPR.
and 3 and 4 and 5.
And just looking at his face, and every time we kept doing it, he wasn't coming back, and it was really scary because I knew him really well.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
This was my friend who was no longer breathing.
3 and 4 and 5.
It was a time of sincere loss for me. It was like when I lost my dad. And that's the only other time I ever felt like that.
A regional ambulance service medic unit, including paramedic Bob Howard, got to the scene within minutes.
What's going on, guys?
His color was very ashen gray. His pupils were fixed and dilated. That's our window to the inside of the body. That indicates that there is no blood pressure to the brain.
CPR.
This was a critical call.
All indications showed us that there was no survivability.
Charging.
All we could do was try.
All right, checking for a pulse.
I've got no pulse, Mike. What do you got?
Patient still in defib, charging to 300. Stand clear.
All right, checking for a pulse. Still got no pulse. Usually they'll respond the first or second time.
Pulse charging at 360.
Okay. So when the third shock had to be delivered, then we know. Chances are this is not going to work out.
Come on, kid, start putting his head. Come on.
Still got no pulse, Mike.
Patient still in defib, charging.
I really didn't feel that it was going to do any good because I thought he was a goner. Some days I can't live with him, but I don't know what I'd ever do without him either.
IV is in. While we were trying to start the cardiac drugs, he did start biting in the tube. Some people call it the death rattle. They can almost appear that they're still alive, but they're not. It's just leftover energy.
Okay, 360.
The drugs were placed on board, and Ted was defibrillated a fourth time.
Checking for a pulse. I have a pulse, Mike.
Finally, I heard one of the rescue people say, I'm getting a pulse.
Got a good strong lead.
It was like the world has suddenly brightened again.
Okay, just relax.
I just couldn't believe it when he came to, and there was nothing wrong with him. He wasn't groggy, he wasn't anything. So what's one of the first things he wanted to know? Whether he won. He wanted to know what his time was.
If you can grab this bag and we move on, okay?
This was my first cardiac call as paramedic, and I can tell you I was honestly very nervous. But to have a man come back and talk to you coherently was just a gift. Ted is alive today because a group of people took the time to learn CPR.
Who did CPR?
They kept him viable.
Great job.
So that when we arrived with all of our fancy equipment and drugs, we had something to work with.
Just relax, you'll be fine.
2 years later, Ted Jones continues to enjoy life to the fullest.
The following week, I was driving my mules at a plowing contest, and the guy says, "What are you, crazy? You were just in the hospital." I said, "Yep."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm dead, too. But I'm here today, and if I die here today, I'm going to die happy with my mules in my hands. And that's how I'm going to live my life."
That's what you said. I just wouldn't be the same person if Ted weren't able to come in and visit. Watching people assist another human being that probably most of them didn't even know restored a whole lot of faith in humanity for myself. And this is one day the man in the black coat didn't win.
There's no way that I could ever tell people how happy I am that he's still there to nag and complain about everything I do. I wouldn't be anywhere near this person that I am without my father around. And I can't thank those people enough that saved me.
Lucky you're there.
Ted used to pick on me for doing volunteer work, but when he had gotten home from the hospital, he said he was sorry that he had said that. He would never pick on me about volunteer work again, that I saved his life.
I'll be grateful the rest of my life to those people. I'm back doing just about everything that I've always done. I can't quite keep up with Bob, but I'm slow but steady. I did get the blue ribbon, you know? Ooh, that was the most expensive blue ribbon I ever got.
Your husband's going to start wondering.
Crime happens every day. We're here to tell you about it. If you're a serious true crime addict, The Daily Crime has you covered. The Daily Crime, an all-new podcast from Vault Studios.
Thanks for using locast.org, the nonprofit that makes local over-the-air broadcast available to everyone. Just $5 each month covers the cost of delivering your local broadcast channels. Please help Locast by becoming a member today.
Investigators believe that after beating Irene as she got out of the shower, Stuart Kovacs forced her over the balcony. After pouring the gas additive into her mouth to make her death look like a suicide, he smeared blood from a cut sustained during the assault on the power tool in the garage. On December 17, 1996, Stuart Kovacs was found guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison.
First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. Prison break. An inmate's reckless attempt at escape.
It's a terrible feeling. It's scary to know that you're going to die.
Includes a hijacking, a kidnapping, and a car chase.
The suspect was pretty desperate.
Plus, could hear our tone, but dispatcher's voice.
A mysterious dispatch.
Maybe she's trying to get our attention because somebody's broken into the office.
Turns out to be a silent cry for help on Rescue 911.
In the early 1980s, the St. Albans Correctional Center in Vermont housed nearly 75 inmates. Although many were serving time for violent crimes, some were allowed to take part in an outside-the-prison work program aimed at getting them ready for eventual release back into society.
On May 3rd, 1982, inmates who had earned work privileges left the grounds of the medium security prison around 7:30 a.m., supervised by Michael Otte.
I was correction outside the fence detail, picking up garbage, cutting lawns, stuff like that. Took them out every day, and most of the inmates were pretty decent people, and they treated me well. I treated them well, so I didn't have any fear of them. I'd been on the job for about 4 or 5 months. I never had a problem with it up till this one day. I was not armed at the time. The Department of Corrections policy is that we do not carry weapons while we're involved with inmates, basically due to the fact that if an inmate was to take you hostage, then they'd have a weapon. And even now, sometimes I have the nightmares. Yeah. We were pulling out of Knight's Point where we'd stop to drop off one of our broken tools.
Hey, come on, Freddy.
I was just so shocked. I just took my foot off the gas and let the vehicle roll.
What are you stop for? Stop. We'll start the damn thing. Come on, Freddy. Come on, will you? Shut up. Find out. You got shot.
I don't have any idea how far I drove. It seemed like for hours.
The man who had taken Otte hostage was serving a 23-year sentence for armed robbery and had a reputation for instability.
Take a left right in this court. Right here.
I don't think I wanted to think what was going to happen.
Take a left right here.
So I just kind of blocked it out, concentrated on driving, and had several nicks on my throat, so I wasn't particularly happy with bumpy roads.
Right in here. Come on, pull it.
There's nothing I could do. It's a terrible feeling. It's scary to know that you're going to die.
When we continue.
See in the mirror on the driver's door that the passenger was holding what appeared to be a knife to the driver's throat.
It wasn't. It's Crystal. Call now. Free shipping.
It's more important than ever to be there.
Were tied behind his back with rope by another inmate. He was then secured to a tree with adhesive tape.
You guys coming?
It seemed like he didn't have any plan or anything. It was just a spur of the moment thing, and he really didn't have any idea what he was doing. With inmates, there's a code that you can't squeal on somebody and you can't help a guard. I knew they couldn't help me, but they really did because they tied me very loosely so that I could get free without too much trouble.
Okay, let's get going. We got a long ways to go.
I gathered the other inmates and we headed down the road to the nearest house where I made a call to the correctional center to inform them that there was an escape. From there, they called the state police.
Mia!
73-year-old May Lamont was at home with her 81-year-old husband, Leo.
It startled me, so I just run into the house and put in a telephone call to the rescue squad.
This is May Lamont. The senior's bus has just run into the ditch on our road.
That's what I thought it was. And I knew if anyone had been in the back of that van, that they would have been injured.
The town's volunteer rescue squad was dispatched, including EMT Gary Tourville, who worked less than 2 miles away.
Got it.
Are you all right?
Yeah, okay.
Is there anyone else down there?
No, just me.
You want to come in and use the phone?
Okay?
Gary arrived at the scene within a few minutes.
You okay, sir? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, I'm just gonna back over here. I'll be right with you.
I went to the telephone intending to call a wrecker. I think I was so frightened, I just passed out.
May's husband, Leo, was already very ill with a serious heart condition.
It probably was only 2 or 3 seconds. I wasn't out very long. Just then, Gary came in. He couldn't believe what he was seeing.
Truck, it's right out here. I'll go with you. Let them go. All right. Just take it easy, okay? May, you okay, May?
I thought Leo was going to have a heart attack because I knew how sick he had been, you know. Then this convict went to Gary and told him, I've got a knife at your throat and you do what I tell you. So they walked out the door. The knife out of it, but I couldn't move. That man looked desperate. I called the state police, and they wanted a description of the man that had held us up.
Yes, help us. A man came in with a knife.
Just received a call from a Mrs. Lamont.
As soon as May's call came in, police in the area were given a description of the situation and the vehicle involved.
I believe it is the corrections van from the way that she described it.
Confirming that Gary Tourville is the...
Essex police officer Mike Brooks heard the call while on routine patrol.
I was going through an intersection in Essex Village. I observed a truck that was similar color and description.
Last seen headed eastbound to South Hill Village. Be advised that subject may be armed and dangerous.
When I called in the plate number to our dispatcher, she immediately called back and said she just received word from the state police and this was a vehicle they were looking for. I could see only one person in the truck because my view was obstructed. He kept looking in his mirror and looking right at me, but the vehicle wasn't pulling over. I just maintained my distance behind the truck and radioed in my position to the dispatcher to coordinate assistance for me.
Backup units were dispatched. Lieutenant Robert Yandel was among those who responded.
I'll stay on 2A. If he takes on industrial, you guys stay with it. Okay.
When I heard that he was going to be making an attempt to stop the vehicle, that's when I left the office with Gary and Robin to lend whatever assistance we to Lieutenant Brooks.
As I close to the truck, I could see in the mirror on the driver's door that the passenger was holding what appeared to be a knife to the driver's throat. I asked for a roadblock once the vehicle turned and started heading towards South Burlington.
Police units from Essex and South Burlington joined forces to form the roadblock.
Come on, go around here!
Once they started to proceed around the roadblock, it became obvious to us that the suspect was pretty desperate and was urging the victim to continue on. At that point, it appeared to be at any cost. The fact that they got on the interstate not only surprised everyone, but gave us an advantage that we wouldn't have had if they'd have stayed on a congested road. Everybody maneuvered their vehicles to box in the suspect.
Hit him, come on! Hit this guy on the right! Come on, hit him! Hit him again! Come on!
Back up a little bit again, we can slow him down.
Once we had the vehicle boxed in, no one was going to allow that situation to digress to the point where it would be out of control again. The victim hostage had no ultimately stopped.
That's quick. I turned to look. All I was doing was looking down the barrel off a lot of guns.
Nice and easy, drop the knife! Drop the knife, drop it! Drop it! Don't move!
These officers had no idea which one of us was which. They just went through a very tense situation.
Nice and easy!
Both were taken out of the vehicle at gunpoint. Both were physically restrained and detained until we were certain that the person driving was actually the victim. Okay, good, you can get out.
They were just doing what they were supposed to do. They didn't have a good job. You couldn't have asked them to do any better.
Watch your hand.
Nobody pulled the trigger.
You don't need ambulance?
The man arrested that day was charged with assault and kidnapping. He was transferred to a higher security prison where he later committed suicide. After several years of trying, prison guard Michael Oddie could not forget the traumatic events of that day. He finally left his job at the prison.
I believe that he would have killed me. I have no idea why he didn't. He threatened him enough times. But it's like even today I have a hard time driving down that road because I hit one certain spot and I can remember it very vividly.
In the years since the incident, Gary Tourville has kept in touch with the now widowed May Lamont.
Hi, Gary. Hi, May. Gary was wonderful, and I owe my life to Gary Tourville. I believe that fellow would have killed us if it hadn't been for him. And I think that ride was one of the wildest rides that anyone ever took.
It's all part of something you were doing, and it just happened you were there at that moment. And he did something that you knew you had to do. It's fun to sit down and talk about it, and go, okay, I ran roadblocks and I rammed into police cars, and I've been handcuffed and frisked, and it's okay, but what's next? It was a Monday. What do you do for Tuesday?
Next.
I was feeling just devastated hanging on the end of that phone line. I knew someone was in trouble, but I had no idea who it was and where they were located.
These are unprecedented times, which are causing
to the
Optima. By Ready to Help.
My house, I'm gonna...
America's
Rings at a communication center, it could be anybody on the line with any kind of problem.
Those who take the calls have to be instantly ready to decide what needs to be done. But on September 11th, 1990, a call came into the Matthews Volunteer Rescue Squad in Matthews, Virginia, that left dispatcher Eric Dieters with more questions asked than answered.
I was into my meal probably about 15 minutes when we received the phone call. I heard only one thing, a voice. I went ahead and told Pat Harrington to pick up the other line so we could hear together what was happening. Maybe the two of us collaborating could piece together the puzzle.
After the pager went off, we could hear just the alert tone, but no dispatcher's voice, which is unusual. Perhaps it was set off by accident.
Paramedic Bob Brown was at a restaurant with his fiancée.
Within a few seconds, it went off again.
She keeps saying off because she's not saying anything.
I wasn't really sure what was happening, but thought maybe she's trying to get our attention because there's somebody in the office. Somebody's broken into the office. She's got a security problem, and she doesn't want to say anything.
On the other side of the county, Sheriff Kenneth Jordan heard the alert tones on his scanner at home.
When I first heard the tones, I was astonished at the way they were going off. It was all mumbled and jumbled in together, just kept pushing. So I dialed the office. Well, the telephone was answered, but nobody said anything. I was sure that there was something serious, but I couldn't get there in less than 10 minutes. Check to see what's going on at the office. Something was wrong there. Deputy Taylor was already responding to the office when I called him.
The tones kept going off and the dispatcher wasn't saying anything. I knew something was happening to her, and I knew I had to get to her.
I went ahead and told my partner to get one of the ambulances out. And like a light bulb, it clicked in our head almost together. These tones, which only originate the sheriff's office, and the call on the line were coming from one and the same place.
In the course of just a few seconds, really, we realized what was happening. She's checking. The realization that another person's life is depending on your immediate intervention is a terrifying thought. The sheriff's office is across the court green, a distance probably of maybe 200 yards. If her life depended on it, I had to get there quickly. She was terrified and turning blue. Obviously, she had been without air now for a significant amount of time. I wasn't sure if she would actually be able to make it to the door to open it for me.
Are you choking? Can you speak?
I do the Heimlich maneuver and nothing happens. And I did it again and again, harder and harder. And I'm thinking to myself, if this thing doesn't come up, this woman's gonna die.
The phones were ringing off the hook. I started answering every call that came in. Most of them were from areas concerned to find out whether or not she was okay.
Can you breathe? You're gonna be okay.
I went from feeling terrified to feeling ecstatic. I'm Bob.
I had joined the rescue squad recently, and he was in it, but I had never met him until that day.
Dispatcher Mary Ewell had been alone on duty that night.
I really thought I was going to die because I didn't think anybody was going to realize what was going on. When I did hit the tones, just in a matter of 2 minutes, everybody was just there. I couldn't even count how many was there to help. Sometimes living in a small county is nice.
Setting off the tones was a very, very smart thing to do.
That was the only way that we knew that there was anything wrong with her.
Sure you're breathing all right?
Trying to scare us all to death. And she was fine, and she said she didn't need to be relieved. She'd go ahead and finish her shift.
How about another candy, Mary?
Nothing, sure.
Mary's mother, Barbara Hudgens, wanted a chance to meet Bob.
I have never met Bob Graham, but I do have a big hug and a kiss for him when I do meet him.
This is my mother.
Good to meet you.
He saved a big part of my life when he saved Mary.
I said I'm going to cry when I met you, but I can't help it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're
Oh, you're alive.
Mary's a wonderful person.
I know. Thank you so much.
I'm very grateful to be alive. Got 4 wonderful children, and Bob Brown is my lifesaver, and hopefully one day I'll be a grandmother thanks to him.
How do you feel being such a hero?
Well, it's kind of embarrassing, really.
I
never feel that.
I think
Every time you save someone's life is a very special thing.
anyone can learn to do the Heimlich maneuver, and the chance to save another person's life is something that will stay with you as long as you live.
First thing you did was hug, huh?
Yeah.
Walk right on the shoulder.
A lot of heavy breathing.
Crime happens every day. We're here to tell you about it. If you're a serious true crime addict, the Daily Crime has you covered. The Daily Crime, an all-new podcast from Vault Studios.
Dennehy pleads guilty to all 3 murders and the 2 attempted murders and is sentenced at the Old Bailey in February 2014. The judge gives her the most extreme sentence available, life imprisonment without parole, an instruction she be kept behind bars until the day she dies. She's the first woman in the UK ever to be sentenced by a judge and given a whole life tariff. Gary Stretch received a sentence of 19 years for his involvement in the murders. Leslie Layton received 14 years for preventing the lawful and decent burial of bodies and perverting the course of justice.
First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911, at a local convenience store, a truck out of control becomes a mother's worst nightmare.
The truck was on top of her and she couldn't move.
We don't have time for a jack.
Plus,
You could tell that this young man was important to a lot of people.
a neighborhood boy collapses
I was crying so hard I could barely see.
on Rescue 911.
On August 8th, 1994, in Hammond, Indiana, Debbie Crozier was spending the afternoon with her fiancé's father, Wayne Edmonds, and her 2 young children. But as they discovered, it's risky to take for granted that the people who are in our lives today will be there tomorrow.
If you can't, I will. You know.
Well, I hope, because I just hate waiting, and then I don't know if he's going to get the kids together. All right, guys.
Heather and Matthew, said they were thirsty and stuff, so I went in there and got him each a pop and bought, I bought him some candy. The note on the window said they were hiring.
Watch them for a second.
Matthew, he's my fishing buddy. And Heather, she gets to be honoring one once in a while. But she's a good kid.
I already paid for once.
These kids mean a lot to us.
Barnes was driving a friend to the store.
Scotty had said to me, look out, there's 2 kids playing there, stay a little bit farther back.
See, that's good. That's why you can't play that.
She's eating those orange sherbet push-ups, and she had it all over her face. And I thought she was really cute.
David Bell happened to be on his way to run an errand at the same mini mall.
This truck's in front of me, and it was moving along, stopping, going, stopping. I remember saying to myself, you're not driving an 18 forward. Come on, just so easy, simple, left turn, forward, park, and stop, and. As she turned and cleared from me, I just zoomed right past her.
I was watching the truck, and then all of a sudden she just lunged forward. I knew the little girl was hit. I didn't want to look. I really didn't want to look.
I didn't know what was going on, but I panicked right away because I said, my God, my kids are outside. I couldn't believe it. The truck was on top of her and she couldn't move.
When I screamed, I said, oh my God. I got angry, I got mad, upset because I said, how could this happen?
My fiance's father wouldn't let me look at Heather.
The way I saw that truck go over her, I didn't think there was going to be too much left of her.
And I said, please, I want to see her, I want to see her.
When we continued, I told this man, we don't have time for a jack. We've got to get this truck off this job now. And he said, what do we do? And I said, let's pick it up. Let's lift the truck.
In these challenging and
I wanted to. I was screaming for Jack, and I saw the little girl turning purple. I wanted to cry. It gets me every time like that.
Hammond dispatcher Jackie Wheeler sent rescue units to the scene as she continued to talk to store manager Karen Wisman.
How old is the child? I don't know.
It's like, I can't believe this is happening in front of my face. You just got scared way down inside.
I could hear in the background the mother screaming. And that's one of the most terrible things you can hear is a parent, a mother, father screaming for their child.
Mechanic Adron Mallard heard the crash from across the street.
When I looked down at the child was blue in color. I told this man, we don't have time for a jack. We've got to get this truck off this job now. And he said, what do we do? And I said, let's pick it up. Let's lift the truck.
I looked at him dead in the eyes. I said, let's do it. Let's do it. Get that jeep out the way. I took that anger, the emotions that was all going within me. I just took it out on that truck. Get the baby out! Get it!
Store clerk Pat Stepp heard their screams for help.
Nobody wanted to go under the truck. Everybody, I think, was in shock. Thought Heather had died, and I couldn't see that truck going back down on top of her again.
Get the baby
And then I seen her move. I couldn't believe it. She was alive.
This man told me at one point, I'm losing my grip, I'm losing my grip. And I said, we cannot let it back down.
But we embraced each other. It was like, oh man, thank God. It's a good job, you know.
When I came around, she sat up and hugged me. Best hug I ever had in my life.
I'm holding Heather in my arms, just like you would a little baby. It's really hard for me. Her face was all swollen. She had pieces of glass all over her. She was real dirty.
I said, I'm trained in first aid. Please put her down on the ground. I said, if she's got a spine or neck injury, you could do more damage by cradling her. I've never seen anything like it before in my life, and I hope to never see it again.
7-year-old Heather Johnson and her 5-year-old brother Matthew were taken to St. Margaret Mercy Healthcare Centers.
I wanted to see my sister because I want to see if she was okay.
1, 2, 3, let's roll her and roll her.
How are you doing? Good, how are you? Her eyes were purple. I was scared. I don't know if she was scared.
While Matthew suffered a fractured collarbone in the accident, amazingly, he suffered 3 fractured ribs and a broken ankle.
I hoped I wouldn't die if the truck was on like about 5 minutes. I would have passed away. It's hard. It's choking me a little bit.
In the 6 weeks that have passed, both children have completely
I did fear. There's no way that I think that this gentleman and myself could ever have done something like this if it wasn't for this little girl's life being feared. I don't know that it could be done again if it were the same situation.
I want to thank him and give him a hug.
Thank you very much.
And just tell him I thank him very much for saving my child's life.
The family and David Bell have become close.
David just happened to be in the right place at the right time. God gave him the strength to lift up that truck and get my daughter out. Because if it wasn't for him, it's honest truth, I would have lost her.
Heather, who I called my girl, said about the driver of the pickup truck. I know she didn't mean to hit me, on purpose. That really touched me when I said, this girl grew up to be someone. Like God gave her a second chance.
David Bell was the hero. We're like very close friends, But he's part of my family now.
I love David Bell with all my heart, and he will always be welcome in my family.
Next.
One of the police officers came up to me and said, your son was huffing butane. I couldn't believe it, right?
I probably.
You too.
Results.
Awesome attacks, negotiated, everything.
And the more
Commercial. Because of the butane huffing.
15,000. I only had to pay 3,500.
Another episode
It's been taken off. Now I'm a happy camper now.
and the teen survived.
Hey, for a free consultation, call 800-924-8074.
Who lived in the neighborhood. On April 11th, 1992, in the suburb of Tulsa, Oklahoma, 15-year-old Brad Kay had planned to spend the afternoon with his usual group of close friends who lived in the neighborhood. He and his father, Tom, got along well, but Tom had no idea of the tragic risks his only son was taking.
Brad was all-American boy. He was adventurous, intelligent, inquisitive. He was sometimes mischievous. He walked into the room, and in a matter of minutes, he'd have the whole place in uproar.
I remember him riding up the street like he always did.
What's going on?
Not much. He was my best friend. He was like my little brother.
Rodney Price, whom Brad had known since he was 5, lived less than a block away.
When we were all bored, he would usually find something to do, or he'd say something, a joke or something. He was hilarious.
Another close friend, Aaron Albrecht, was also over at the...
We were talking. Someone had mentioned butane, so we decided to go up to the store. Me, Brad, and another friend.
See you later.
Often, it was kind of like a fad. Everybody at school was doing it. Brad, he loved it because he made me feel like he was invincible or different or something. I mean, and I felt the same thing. I liked it too.
We drove around for about an hour or an hour and a half, and we kept inhaling butane. Brad did about a whole can, but he was being normal as I could tell. You know, I didn't see anything different besides him laughing all the time. We came back here. Brad was walking in front of me. Come on, Brad. I said, can I get up? Brad. He wouldn't get up. But I didn't know what was going on. My heart was racing. I was freaking out.
Oh, God. Brad. The way he was on the ground looked like, I mean, there was something really wrong. He wasn't breathing.
Come on, Brad.
Get my mom! And I was scared to death.
Rhonda Brown, a registered nurse, was at home 2 doors up the street.
And I heard the kids screaming. And I thought, great, somebody's fighting. And so I looked up over the fence, and I could see Brad laying on the ground. Brad was my favorite out of the whole neighborhood, and everybody knew it. So to see this kid lying on the ground, it was very hard.
Brad!
He was making a sound where you could tell no air was moving in his lungs. A car pulled up at that point, and a man came out of the car, and he said, I know CPR. He checked for a pulse. He said he doesn't have a pulse.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and breathe.
One of the kids had run to get Brad's father, Tom Kay.
I didn't know whether he had an accident, somebody had shot him. I couldn't understand why my son was on the ground not breathing. I couldn't comprehend what was going on.
Breathe it. Come on, Brad.
He only responded to me one time and looked straight at me, and he went and took a full breath. That was the only breath he took that was effective. And that's where it dawned on me, you know, we may lose this kid.
Rescue units with the Broken Arrow Fire Department arrived within 5 minutes, including EMT Paul Thompson.
The way the neighborhood was responding, you could tell that this young man was important to a lot of people.
What we got?
It was obvious that he was starving for oxygen. And when I realized that Brad was in cardiac arrest, I put my pads on the chest of the patient. I hooked up my defibrillator.
Everybody stand back. Shock's being advised. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Shock is delivered. Okay, we're checking for pulse.
The first shock, it had no effect on the patient at all. And I shocked him again. And then after the second shock, I checked for pulse. I did have a pulse.
Keep breathing, Jeff. You're good. 1, 2, 3. You better.
We're all taught if you get to somebody quickly, you can save a life. Brad no more than hit the ground that somebody was by his side. So I really had a lot of hope that things would turn out.
Brad Kay was taken to St. Francis Hospital, where he was examined by pediatric intensive care specialist, Dr. Michael Stoyko.
Happy trip?
He unfortunately was minimally responsive. By filling the lungs with butane, the lungs no longer had oxygen, and the oxygen levels in his blood dropped rapidly.
That's clear.
But you could look at his face and you could see a beautiful, vital young man there who did something intentionally, who was now laying there helpless. Everybody was just very, very depressed, knowing that this could have been prevented.
All Tom and Jan Kay could do was wait for word of their son's condition.
One of the police officers came up to me and said, "Your son was huffing butane." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, that's where they inhale the butane out of the can." And I thought, "Oh, Lord." And I couldn't believe that Brad would choose to do something like this.
You just keep hoping that this is not really happening, and it didn't seem real. It seemed like this was happening to someone else.
He's not opening his eyes, he's not moving around, and that's very worrisome that his brain may be very seriously injured. The initial prognosis that I told the parents was that he was very unlikely to survive. That would make sense.
At that point, our hearts just sunk, absolutely sunk.
You'll see a little pad on the chest here, what that's doing now.
There was just no change in Brad at all. From the first time that I saw him to the last time that I saw him.
So it's been a rough road here for the last hour.
You know, miracles happen every day, and I thought, why can't one happen for us?
Mr. Mrs. K.
At 5:30, they came in and they said, "Brad's failing.
You need to go in and get
If you want to say something to your son, now's the time." So he went in there and spent the last moments with him. And he held his head as he slipped away. There's nothing we could do.
At 6:01 a.m., less than 11 hours after he collapsed from inhaling butane, 15-year-old Brad Kay was pronounced dead.
The lesson I would love to have people learn is that, contrary to what their peers may be telling them, these types of drugs are very dangerous. You are essentially playing Russian roulette. The tragedy here is one of ignorance. There are probably thousands of children out there who are inhaling these very, probably as we speak, one of them is dying.
I still have a picture on my wall of him, just to remind me. I don't want to forget about him. If Brad never died, I'd probably still be laughing right now. But that right there is something that'll just kill you. I mean, even though I'm not dead, I mean, it seems like some part of me's dead because Brad died. It seems like part of me's missing.
I always knew teenagers weren't invincible, even though they think they are. It's sad that it took him for everybody to learn a lesson. I miss him. If I could do anything to bring him back, I would.
It'll be a very long time for both Jan and I to recover totally, and we probably never will. We'll always hold a very, very special part of Brad in our hearts. See a boy Brad's age and you wonder what Brad would have grown up to be. He had a lot of opportunity. And Brad's not going to be able to fulfill those opportunities at this point because he made a terrible, terrible mistake.
But actually, you know, he was born in 1977. He's around my brother's age, and my brother's like 44 years old, so he would probably be 43, 44 today. I mean, my brother, you know, born in 1977, you know, he had a drug problem as a teenager, had an alcoholic, became an alcoholic, but I mean, my brother's survived today.
That's 800-990-4519.
Today on Rescue 911, a South American cave diving nightmare continues.
And the bottom of my heart, I thought that he was gone.
Be there as rescue specialists are flown in from the United States.
We thought that was completely unrealistic that he would be alive.
To find a man trapped for more than 72 hours. Then,
sir, are you okay? Just fine.
Passengers attempt to save a choking man by performing an onboard operation on Rescue 911.
While diving in an underwater cave in the jungles of Venezuela, Gustavo Badillo became lost somewhere deep below the surface. As soon as it was light the next morning, his friends drove to the nearest town and called everyone they could think of for help, including the owner of the dive shop where Gustavo worked.
Hello? I had some experience in cave diving, but I've never done a rescue. I just wasn't trained to do it. So right away, I called a friend of ours in Florida. Oh, I knew that if anybody was the person to do it was Steve.
Steve Gerard is one of the most experienced cave divers in the United States.
This is Vivian Driago calling from Caracas, Venezuela. We had
She wanted me to come down immediately to help find him.
I can come down if you want me to.
I had no idea where in Venezuela that was located.
There's a lot involved in getting ready to go down to where you are.
A friend of Gustavo's, Leo Calagaro, who had done some cave diving, heard of the accident and flew in to make a rescue attempt of his own.
When I saw him, I hugged Leo and started crying because for me it was my last hope.
Era un amigo. He was a friend. He was also a human being. I had to do something for him.
By this time, it had been more than 24 hours since Gustavo first entered the cave.
By and by, they came back out. They said they cannot enter. They didn't have the right equipment, and they didn't want to make the same mistake. When I came out, everyone was upset. Everyone. I told Maria Elena, it's best if you leave, because tomorrow when they come, they may pull out a corpse.
So I took all Gustavo's belongings. I left his jacket because it's going to be very cold, and his chocolate bar. He always has one after he dies. I said, this is it. It's over.
When we continue.
Now we're into almost 36 hours of the missing. We thought that it was completely unrealistic that he would be alive.
But are there for
On Rescue 911.
why so
Did you see?
over 300
miles by air and land.
And probably
in Florida? It's very rare to find anyone alive in the Cape. We've had over 325 fatalities in Florida alone.
Steve had convinced his friend, John Orlowski, a specialist in diving river caves like Acarite, to go with him to South America.
I said, well, if he's been in 50-degree water for that length of time, you have to realize he's hypothermic and probably dead.
In my mind, I was going to Venezuela to do a body recovery.
The trip from Florida was 1,500 miles by air and land. By the time Steve and John arrived at the cave, it was 7 o'clock on the morning of the third day.
Mis compañeros y yo, por supuesto, my friends and I, we moved as fast as possible to help them get the equipment down. No sabíamos si llorar. We didn't know whether to cry or laugh or what, because we felt that salvation had come.
Good luck, man. Thank you.
The one last thing I said to the crowd was, well, let's hope for a happy ending.
Okay.
But now we're into almost 36 hours that the man's missing. We thought that it was completely unrealistic that he would be alive. You couldn't see anything. You could barely see your hand in front of your face. We could have been inches away. We could have passed the body 6 times and never even seen it. Steve said at that point, oh, just sit here for about 2 hours and go out and tell them we go find him. Because we're not going to find him in this. But it was like, okay, we're here, we have a job to do, let's get it done and get the hell out of here. I felt like I had made a left-hand turn. You can't see, so it's just a feeling you have. I saw a light flashing. And I went, oh, you dumb shit. You just swim around in a circle, and you're coming right back up on Steve. So I popped my head up, and I said, yeah, Steve, what? All I see is this person stumbling towards me. At that point, the victim had already grabbed me and was hugging me.
See? He was realizing that this was not a dream.
We started doing a lot of high-fiving, and it was like, I can't believe it. He's alive.
Pegué un grito. I let out a scream that was heard, I'm sure, several kilometers away. I felt at that moment so incredibly happy. Super feliz.
I'll never forget that one mom. It was like from a movie, seeing that.
Apparently, Gustavo had gotten tangled in the guide rope and became disoriented while trying to free himself.
Seguí nadando.
I kept swimming through different passages. I was thinking, why is this happening to me? My legs. It was difficult to swim because they would fall asleep from the cold. Time passed, I'm not sure how much. I practically the water, how it turned white. I thought, the angels have come. And I said, oh my God, heaven is English and the angels are English.
Gustavo and their wife did a foolish thing. They went to this cave without having the right equipment or really knowing how to do it correctly.
Gustavo Badillo was treated for exposure and dehydration and released from the hospital that same day. 1 year later, he and Maria Elena were married.
Tengo problemas con María Elena.
I have problems with Maria Elena because she suffered a lot with this, and she's very much afraid of all my expeditions.
Gustavo likes to go to mountains, to a beach, motorcycle rides, many places that I've never been because I've been very city type person. But I love him a lot. He loves my son, and as long as I can and God gives us life, I hope we'll be together.
Gustavo plans to return one day to explore the mysteries of Academia, but only after becoming certified in cave diving.
Anyone that wants to go there, we have to tell him how dangerous that adventure could be. I think there's doses of inexperience in all this. It's good to be brave, but it's good to think about what you're doing.
You need que Steve y John.
That Steve and John would come down from the United States and want to rescue me without even knowing me. I think that that's a true miracle. Thank God the angels came and they saved me.
Next.
The lady calmly said to me, "Sir, I don't think my husband's breathing." I knew it was total airway obstruction.
Attention, anyone on Medicare. Did you know
Never had any. 28th, 1990, more than 100 passengers boarded the On May 28, 1990, more than 100 passengers boarded a plane bound for San Antonio, Texas, and settled in for what they thought would be a pleasant trip. But less than halfway through the flight, at 35,000 feet above the ground, all that would suddenly change. The co-pilot on U.S. Air Flight 179 was Leonard Jessup.
For me, I had 9,000 hours of flying time at that point. I never had any type of emergency at all in my flying experience. We were westbound en route to San Antonio. We were probably about 100 miles east of Memphis.
The plane had leveled off at 35,000 feet. Meals were being served, and flight attendant Dan Matthews was passing out beverages.
Anything with lunch today, sir? I was serving a passenger sitting in a window seat, and the lady in the row right behind him calmly said to me, "Sir, I don't think my husband's breathing." He was darkish gray, kind of hunched over. He was not making any motion. Ladies, I need you up and out of your seats right away. I'm buckling from the symptoms that were taught in our initial training. I knew it was total airway obstruction. Sir, are you okay? Sir, are you okay? Respond to me. Respond.
Using the skills he had learned in his flight training, Dan immediately began performing the Heimlich maneuver.
Respond, sir. Doing good. Keep going. Are you sorry? It's still blocked? It's still blocked. The abdominal thrusts were not working because I could not get him up high enough to get the force. So I started doing chest compressions. Come on. Don't quit. Keep going. You're doing good. Is it coming out? It's not coming out yet. I'm not quite sure I'd say he was dead or alive at that point, but I knew we better get on the ground or we better get something done here right away.
The victim's 79-year-old wife had been sitting next to him,
But before I knew what was happening, the stewards took me away, so that I didn't realize it was as serious as it was.
First Class Flight Attendant Mike Sullivan notified the captain and the co-pilot there was a medical emergency on board.
Started the Heimlich maneuver. The guy's unconscious and non-responsive.
We're not at liberty to leave the cockpit, so the medical emergency is left up more to the discretion of the flight attendants.
Let us know when you get out. Keep us up.
Up ahead, there was a commotion on the airplane, and I turned to Eddie and I said, Eddie, I think something's going on up ahead. I said, I'm going to go up there and see if I can help him out.
Fine with that. We're doing good.
I'm a doctor. Doctors Eddie Sanders and Charles Plotkin, two anesthesiologists, happened to be on board.
I gave several attempts at the Heimlich maneuver. Didn't feel as though I could get anywhere.
It had been 4 minutes since the victim's airway was blocked.
So I said, well, if he's choking, the Heimlich doesn't work. I figured a back slap would work well for him.
Had to come out? Others out.
But we did that, and the situation didn't change at all.
I did a quick finger sweep. There was nothing there, and I attempted mouth to mouth.
Try to give it another breath. I can't move anything.
Wasn't able to move any air. That is not characteristic of successful mouth-to-mouth ventilation. I should have the sense that I could breathe easily from my lungs into his. Tried to check the pulse on the patient, a carotid pulse, and felt absolutely nothing.
Okay, he's still not breathing.
He was about as blue as a pair of blue jeans. He was totally lifeless. If this guy had been in my operating room, I would be really worried. I'd be calling out for help.
They were more than 15 minutes from the nearest airport large enough to land the plane.
We're running out of time. We know what needs to be done. We don't have the equipment.
You have to move some air, or nothing is going to be successful from this point on. And at that point, I said, okay, we're going to have to cut this man's neck. We're going to have to get a surgical airway.
Eddie, we're going to have to do a surgical airway. Give me a knife. Somebody got a knife? I need a knife. Does anybody have a knife?
There was not a moment to wait. If I don't do this, this man is not going to make it. He's going to be dead. I have nothing to lose here.
From somewhere on the plane materialized a Swiss Army knife.
Open it for me. Give me the big blade, please.
There's no time to sterilize anything. If the man lives to get an infection, you've done a great job.
Hold him real still. Okay, I got it right there. We're going to have to put something in here, Eddie. We need a pen, please, a tube of some kind.
We asked for a pen to give us some ability to provide a little bit of oxygen to this patient.
This one for you? Yeah, that's right. You take that apart. Give me the bottom part, please.
I held my finger in that hole. But as I did that, I felt something against it, and instinctively I just pushed it.
And the obstruction came out his mouth, and it appeared to be a very large, partially chewed piece of meat. He began to breathe a little bit, and it appeared that his heart had restarted.
And then I'm faced with a whole different problem, and that's the problem of bleeding. It's something I had not anticipated. It just started coming out. It came out in a big gush.
More blood than I've ever seen. And I worked in an operating room every day of my life. Crossed my mind at that point that we had saved him from their initial problem, but he's now going to bleed to death. We needed to land the plane right then.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency on board, and at this time we're going to need your cooperation because we're going to be diverting and landing in Memphis.
And I'm used to dealing with airway problems, but I'm not used to dealing with bleeding problems. The only way I know to stop bleeding is to put pressure on it. And I realized that maybe if I'd squeezed around the loose skin that's in the neck area here, and bring it together around the pen cap, then I could at least put pressure on whatever was bleeding.
The gentleman at that point began to flail around a little bit, to move, to fight. My concern is that he was going to stand up and probably rip everything out of his neck. It literally took both of us to try to keep him from moving.
So please let's do it for us. Oh, guys, now.
He was starting
to regain almost his normal color. And we actually got him to squeeze my hand at command. And that's all I wanted. That means the brain was working. When the plane got to a stop, by that time the door was open and there was an ambulance there.
Paramedics packaged the 89-year-old victim for transport to the hospital.
We were able to get the man out of the airplane very quickly. The paramedics carrying him in the stretcher with my hand still on his neck, holding the pressure until we got to the ambulance. And at that point, I could not hold my fingers like that. I couldn't. They had got to a point where they're so tired I couldn't hold the tight pressure. Well, I let go. There was no bleeding.
En route to the hospital, Dr. Plotkin spoke with one of the paramedics.
I said, you come out here often for these sort of things. He says, usually it's come out and get somebody off a plane, but usually they don't survive. And I kind of felt a little bit good that time, because I said, well, not today, not with this man. Okay, this man's going to make it. After it was over, there was just this tremendous rush of emotions and utter amazement that we're on the flight, we're side by side. This happens, we both see it, we're able to respond as a team. It's one of the most incredible coincidences that I could ever imagine.
Jack Sykes completely recovered. 2 years later, he looks back on that day from his home in Yorkshire, England.
My last memory was that I was dying, but I wasn't in distress, I wasn't in pain, and I felt if this is dying, well, there's nothing to it.
Jack will never forget the two strangers who saved his life.
I haven't spoken to them, but we've had correspondence with them, and I'm deeply grateful to them, deeply grateful.
Jack continues to enjoy the things he loves most in life.
I've asked myself many times what I was saved for, what is it for me to do? I think sometimes there's nothing for me to do, and then I think, yes, there is. I have to keep my wife happy.
We've been married 44 years, and are we still happy? Yes, 100% as we were when we got married. You know what it says, Jack? Wales, a small country, has literature which is among the oldest in Europe.
Every night, before I go to sleep, I say, I love you, in case I die in the night. So that you remember that my very last words were, I love you.
Hi, I'm Jimmy J.J. Walker. If you're on Medicare, listen to this. I call the 1-800 number to see what extra Medicare benefits you get. The thing you may be entitled to.
I'm on a fixed income, so I call to get money added to my Social Security check every month.
Call and get what you may be entitled to. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-208-5756. That's 1-800-208-5756. Now.
When you know what to do when disaster strikes, first responders break down.
Maybe I should turn this off and go to YouTube and see where I'm at with the numbers of vids.
I know. But yeah, guys, it's hot.
But that was somebody else's video. Let's see. Go to library. Go to my videos. When you do that, it will tell you how many videos uploaded. Let's see. I'm at 1,795. Well, I'm going to go back to, the Streamium app and do Rescue 911. I was just seeing where I was at with the uploading.
This one off to the cat.
This is just a baseball game. I'm not interested. Oh.
Sure, or excuse me.
Harley hogs the ball.
First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. Beneath freezing snow, an avalanche buries a boy alive.
I already tried to save his life.
Courageous neighbors take rescue efforts into their own hands.
Nothing was going to stop me until I found him.
Plus, a choking dog.
What's the matter?
A frantic owner.
Come on, stay with me.
And a surprised fireman.
I opened up the door expecting to find a baby, or just couldn't believe it was a dog there.
On Rescue 911.
We begin in Deerfield, New York on February 15th, 1993, where a fierce winter storm had left an unusually thick blanket of fresh snow that was irresistible to 11-year-old Grant Rozier and his good friend Greg Zisk.
The ravines around our area are deep, they're dangerous, and we do our best to try to make the kids know that, but they're not allowed to go back and play in the ravine. It's just too dangerous.
This part over here is the best, I think. It'll be an awesome place to slide down.
Greg's been my friend for about 6 years. My best friend for 6 years. We hang out a lot. We go to the mall. We go skating together. We get girls together and stuff. Just hang out.
Awesome! Look at
We
this!
told my dad that we were going sliding, but we didn't tell him that we were going sliding down the ravine.
Whoa!
We just slide down there and you go all over the place and it's wicked fun. Go really fast.
Still be the best one. Come on, buddy. Come on.
We both like the thrill. It's like bungee jumping. You're just going free falling.
What? Oh, look at that. That's wicked awesome over there.
And we went over to this spot where a big drift was.
Come on. Dude, look at this. Look at over there. Oh.
We're starting to go to the edge. You can hear it stick down a little bit.
Oh, man, look at this. This is awesome. Come on. Come on. It's gonna be wicked cool. Down this way. Come on.
When we continue.
I just couldn't believe how much snow was there. I was just thinking to myself, there's no way he could be buried.
No price increase.
On YouTube, this is like two strings.
Slash 36.
Two live streams going
At Nix.com.
2 different.
When the snowdrift Grant Rozier and his best friend, 12-year-old Greg Zist, were standing on Gateway, they fell down an 80-foot ravine and were buried by the avalanche of snow.
I thought he was buried beside me, so I started digging around where I was. There was no trace of anything, no boots, no gloves, no nothing. It was weird because one minute you're just up on the top and you're having fun, and the next minute it's really scary. I couldn't imagine that he could, be dead because we were like so young. I didn't think, anything like this could happen to us. Digging them up, but I gotta get up there and leave. Dad!
By the time Grant got home, 15 minutes had passed since the avalanche.
Where? He was in hysterics. I knew there was something drastically wrong.
Ken had someone call for help, but the volunteer rescuers were several away.
You go along the top of the bridge, I'll go down over there. I was cognizant that time was not on my side.
Grant's aunt, Renee Spatuzzi, was also helping to search for Greg.
I just couldn't believe how much snow was there. I was just thinking to myself, there's no way he could be buried under there and still be alive.
Greg! Oh my God. Ken! Over there!
Greg! Greg, hey there, buddy. Well, I started digging thinking that we might be able to find Greg right there. Greg, can you hear me?
20 minutes had already passed since the avalanche.
Oh my God.
Stop right there. Greg!
We weren't getting anywhere, and I was terrified.
Anything yet?
I don't see anything.
I didn't want to think that I'd never see him again.
I wish I had gloves and I didn't. My hands were very cold, but once they got numb, it made it much easier just to continue digging. Hey, Greg! Greg! Gotta do something. Here. Greg!
When we found him, I thought that Greg was gone. I just couldn't imagine telling his parents what happened.
I was digging up one of my son's best friends. There was no sign of life or respiration or anything.
Greg, can you hear me?
But the scariest moment was the very first minute I saw those eyes, about half open and glazed. And they'll stick with you forever.
It had been more than 40 minutes since Greg was buried under the snow.
Greg appeared to be dead, but we were not going to just give up and let that be the case. No matter how I found him, I was going to do something to try to change that. No matter. Let's not give him some. Neither Renee or I are trained in CPR.
Come on, breathe.
We just drew upon what we thought we knew, understanding that the premise was to get air into this child's lungs, and that was what we tried to do.
Deerfield volunteer firefighter Paul Meekum helped coordinate the rescue attempt.
It was a very dangerous situation, the fact that it was very steep and it seemed to be in the area of 60 to 70 feet down, straight down.
Come on, pal. All of a sudden, his eyelid twitched. And the first thing I thought was, God, could it be possible that we might be able to save this kid?
What's going on?
Advanced EMT Steve Beck treated Greg at the scene.
It's been a long time. What's his name? Greg.
He was blue. He was breathing very slowly and very shallow. But it wasn't enough to maintain life.
Wait on. You're all set, Paul.
We're a volunteer fire department, and we don't do repelling situations as a norm, but that was the only way out.
Okay, hold still, Greg. Okay, don't fight us.
I was amazed that he was breathing on his own, but I was concerned that even if we did everything right, that he might still suffer brain damage.
All right, here we go, guys. Coming up. Take your time, guys. Come on. Nice and easy, nice and easy.
When they dragged him out, now I'm starting to assess, what does being alive mean now for this child? Does it mean brain damage? Does it mean not being exactly the same person he was before?
Just as Greg was loaded into the ambulance, his mother, Mary Angela Zisk, arrived.
They were telling me we have to see if we can revive him. He looked like a dead person. He didn't even look like he was going to be alive. And I couldn't even go near him. I couldn't hug him. They wouldn't let me touch him.
Greg was transported to St. Elizabeth Hospital, where he was met by an emergency team, including trauma nurse Patsy Matos.
This child was in a serious situation. He was hypothermic, 88 degrees.
Been unconscious, semi-conscious other things.
In the initial period, the cold did work to Greg's advantage because it could have prevented irreversible brain damage. But when your body temperature drops, it changes a lot of things within the body that could be very serious and ultimately fatal. We placed a warming blanket on him called a bear hugger. It's hooked to a machine by a hose. You turn the machine on, and what it does is it blows warm air into the blanket itself, and it warms his body from the outside.
How you doing? It's up to 90%.
Doing good? You know where you are? As a person is warming up, when the temperature reaches between 91 and 93 degrees, you have to watch for symptoms of an impending cardiac arrest.
You're gonna feel warm and just
It was very, very tough to see him like that. Very tough. He was very brave, but he was very scared.
A CAT scan revealed Greg had suffered no brain injury. He was taken to the pediatric unit, where his family and friends were finally able to see him.
His blue eyes were big and wide, and he knew who I was, and he hugged and kissed me. It was a great moment. It was a great moment.
When your heart heard about, that night I just stayed up praying, thanking God that He let me live.
We love you, honey.
When I was buried down in the snow, I was struggling for a few minutes, and then I just gave up because I knew there was no hope for me. To me, I thought I would never see anybody again. But I was happy that he was okay. I was really happy. He looked a little blue because he was still cold, but he looked like, okay for a person who got in an avalanche. When I was ready to get out, I really wanted some solid food and I wanted pizza.
Greg has completely recovered from the incident.
I believe it was a miracle. Anybody who could be under the snow that long, look the way he looked and go through what he went through and then come out of it unscathed. God, we were lucky. Very lucky. All of us.
I'm very grateful to Ken and Renee that they could find Greg and helped him and acted as quickly as they did. And I'm really thankful and I'm really proud of Grant.
I just did what I thought was right. I calmed myself down and I went up the ravine to go get out. When I found out what Grant did for me, I think he really saved my life. And I love him as a brother. Me and Grant got a lot closer since that accident. There is a lesson we learned. Don't take risks with your life because it can happen in an instant. Your life could be taken away.
Next.
Heard someone yelling, choking, and I opened up the door expecting to find a human being, and it was just a pile of fur laying on the floor of the truck.
Watch how Luminesce seems to blur away age spots to look years younger instantly. See this? behavior returns time and
Magical and powerful that it stirs the soul.
095512 now or visit trysilk.com. Order now.
Love is a force so magical and powerful that it stirs the soul. It triggers emotions so strong, they sometimes cause us to act irrationally and even dangerously. As Lisa Freeman discovered on the evening of September 7th, 1993, in the tiny town of Presque Isle, Maine.
I was tired of coming home to an empty house and I needed a companion. Harley, he's just a doll. He's my man.
But for the past 2 years, Lisa's affections have also been courted by Greg Roderick.
I don't think I come a close second to Harley. No.
Hey, he doesn't complain, doesn't tell me what to do, you know, he's always in a good mood. I love him.
Good boy.
Harley tears the siding from the garage. But that's okay, because that's Harley. Harley breaks windows. That's okay. Harley chews anything he wants to. Harley can chew a beer can to shreds. Figure that.
He's a Springer Spaniel, 53 pounds. He's all dog. He's a bonehead. It was about 9:20 that evening when I got home and grabbed his ball and started throwing it.
Get the ball. Get it. Yes. Get it, Harley. Come on. Harley. What's the matter? Are you okay? What's the matter? Get it out. Cough it out. Come on, get it out.
The ball just went down the hatch. The thought never entered my mind that he would ever swallow it. It just never entered my mind. And then his paws came up around his mouth, like he was trying to get it out of his mouth.
Harley, what's the matter? What's the matter?
I'm thinking that maybe...
Come on, get it out. Get it out. Come on. Do it. Come on, get it out. Come on. Come on. You okay? Harley.
He went down and his breathing just got really intense and loud. He was really gasping for air.
Okay.
My main concern was I needed to get help. I needed somebody to help me.
Hold on.
But my inside and my mind, I mean, I was just a wild woman. I was going to my brother's because his wife is a nurse. She helps people. I thought she could help Harley. He just stopped breathing at that time, passed out onto the floor.
Oh no.
I thought I had lost him. The next thought that came into my mind was paramedics at the fire station. They save people's lives. They've got to be able to help me. Just floored the truck. I just gave it all I had. I knew he had stopped breathing from the time that I stopped at that stop sign. It seemed like hours.
At the Presque Isle Fire Station, paramedic firefighter Rich Wark was on duty.
He's choking on a ball.
Heard someone yelling, choking, and I opened up the door expecting to find a baby, a child, a human being, and it was a dog. I just couldn't believe it was a dog there, but it didn't, it just kept going. It just kept reacting to the situation.
I can see it. I can't get my fingers around it.
This dog was just a pile of fur laying on the floor of the truck. No breathing, no rasping, and he might have had a heartbeat. I couldn't feel one.
Come on, dog.
As far as I knew, this dog was dead.
Now it's a ball. Jeez, I can almost get it.
It looked to me like it was down behind his tongue,
Come on.
just below the base of his tongue. That's why maybe he couldn't bring it out. And I couldn't get my fingers down around the ball.
Firefighter Dale Morrison was also trying to help.
He took both hands and he just, prying it out of the mouth open. At that point, the dog was not fighting it or resisting it at all.
So now they're giving me another indication that he's not going to make it.
Finally, I pushed from the outside on his throat a little bit and grabbed the ball at the same time. And I popped it out.
There it is, we got it.
When they got the ball out, I didn't hear any of the guys saying, "Oh, good, you're doing okay, you'll be okay." I heard no response. That was probably the most scariest point.
It really didn't revive much, and I could feel a heartbeat on his side. So I went and I grabbed his snout, and I was supposed to mouth the snout, and he kind of made like a snort with his mouth, so I knew he was breathing then. Lisa said, "Harley, how are you doing?" And his little tail started wagging, and then he started coming out of it then.
Hi, Harley. Hi, Harley.
Words can't explain what came over me at that time. I just knelt down, just hugged him, gave him a hug.
How you doing? You okay?
All that night, I got up every 2 hours to check on him. And in the morning, he was just jumping around, back to himself. The bonehead.
There he is.
Come on. There he is.
Recently, Lisa and Harley stopped by the station to visit Rich and the other firefighters.
Yeah.
I can't thank Rich enough for the way that he reacted instantly, just ran out and knew instantly what to do.
Get a souvenir for you. My job is a different challenge every day, and a good paramedic improvises and overcomes, what's thrown his way, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it did.
She was really surprised and happy that the dog was going to be all right. It was almost like a newborn mother having a new child. It's a miracle.
Nice to see you.
I think the ball was probably too small to be playing with. Just like with kids, you don't want to keep anything too small around, marbles or things like that, candy. Definitely, I think the ball was too small.
I thought it was a lot bigger than
Here, have it.
It's wonderful that there's people like that in the world. So in my eyes, Rich, he's a hero. And I'm sure in Harley's eyes, he's a hero.
Harley graduated from B school 2 days before this event happened.
Come on.
They forgot the ballpark completely.
I won't let him play with anything that I can even think that he'll swallow. Maybe I'm overprotective. I was married once. It was a great experience, but I prefer having a dog.
Sliced himself with a box cutter he took from the utility drawer and returned to the bedroom to plant the evidence. Confronted with the evidence, Brett Harris withdrew his insanity defense. He pled guilty to 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 41 years to life.
First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911, a real cliffhanger.
Hang on, man, hang on.
A thrill seeker tumbles to a precarious ledge 30 feet below.
Someone had to get down there and treat our patient.
I think I can do this. First few steps were the worst.
Plus, an everyday item becomes a deadly weapon.
You could see straight down through his chest.
And paramedics must rush to save a 4-year-old boy.
This child has been stabbed, and we're thinking the worst.
On Rescue 911.
We begin on the afternoon of March 21st, 1994, as John Austin and his best friend Oliver Miner set out to explore the rugged beauty of Fern Cliff State Park near Goreville, Illinois.
What we've done is put a trail system in to let them safely see some of the vistas.
All right, I'm gonna go to school. Sometimes a senior can really, be tranquil to you when you're really stressed out. And I was just basically trying to get out, away from it all. And I love being outdoors. Hey, let's go to the cliffs.
We've got bluffs that'll range anywhere from 30 to 100 feet. The majority of the people will stay on the trail system.
What are you doing? He's a really close friend, but Oliver's a daring individual, he always has been. Man, why don't you come back a little bit, man? Come on, man. I'm not a chance taker when it comes to my life, I won't do that. Wait, watch this. See ya. We kind of came upon this little island-type cliff that we jumped down from 3 years ago. It's a pretty dangerous-looking sight. It spooks me. Yeah, this is right where I jumped up, right here. The jump itself was something I would never do in a million years. Oliver just takes his chances. Do not do that. I'm serious. He gave me the car keys, and he was saying, well, at least if I fall, if I get hurt, you can go through me of the car. You are not serious. Dude! Come on, man! Oliver, look, come on. Don't do this. Do not do it, Oliver. Come on. He said, babe. When I saw you land safely, I felt better about it. I was a little bit calmer. Come on, you can't get back from here. Look at that. I said, we've got to really watchfully think about a way to get off this. So why don't you wait here, and I'll get somebody to get you down. And he was thinking about it. He was considering that. But he just opted to get down himself, so I think I can do it. When I really got struck with panic, I was in shock. I knew right then that my actions could determine whether he lived or died. I looked for something to get him with. No! Oliver!
When we continue.
Were you still kicking right in there and going to work?
This time, can't do anything. It's down there, it's 30 feet away, and you can't jump down there. You can't climb down there.
It's frustrating. Hey, Oliver!
Have you ever said this?
My finances were very
Copy.
Oh, now, there's... When Oliver Miner attempted to leap back from an island rock to the top of a cliff, he lost his grip and fell. All his best friend John Austin could see was that Oliver's motionless body was wedged in a narrow rock crevice 35 feet below the top of the cliff and 50 feet above the ground.
When he slipped and fell over, to me it looked like the end. Oliver! I just didn't know if he was going to be alive.
John quickly found a park ranger.
Within 15 minutes, a Johnson County ambulance unit arrived, including EMT Brent Schurbaugh. But they could not get to the victim.
Rappelling is dangerous. Even if you have all the safety equipment, there's always that element of danger in it. So we're going to try to reach in from the bottom and minimize the...
As rescuers headed to the bottom of the cliff to look for a place to climb up to Oliver, EMT Mike Judds stayed at the top.
You want to get to that patient. We're used to getting right in there and going to work. This time, can't do anything. He's down there, it's 30 feet away. You can't jump down there. You can't climb down there. You damn sure can't fly down there. It's frustrating.
Are you dizzy right now?
I wanted to see where he was at mentally.
You feel cold? Stay where you're at, Oliver. Don't try to go anywhere.
When we got there, at the bottom, it was impossible. It was almost a vertical incline, and there was no way in the world to reach in. And that's when it hit us, that it's going to take time to get this guy off the rock. And time wasn't something we were at all sure that we had at that point.
EMT Leonard Oliver was also among those at the bottom of the cliff.
We don't know if something was broken inside and your whole torso area could fill up with all the blood in your body. In a matter of minutes, you could really go into shock.
EMS Director Donna Norton was in charge of the rescue.
The Rangers could repel, but they didn't have medical experience. My EMTs had all the medical experience in the world, and they couldn't repel. But it had to be done. Someone had to get down there and treat that patient.
I don't know what made me say it, but I said, I didn't know a thing about ropes, but I think I can do this.
You're on the rope, right? And everything's secure. Ranger Sam Richardson gave Mike some basic instructions on how to rappel.
There was a man on the rock that would do it. He realized what needed to be done, and he didn't hesitate. He says, "Can you get me there?" And I says, "Yeah." And he said, "That's all I need to know."
He's giving me a crash course in rappelling while the other guy's putting the harness and stuff on me. I'm listening to them, and I'm hanging on every word they say about how to use this equipment. You're aware of the danger around you, but you're focusing on what you got to do. You're focusing on that patient.
Get you locked in when it's your turn to go.
I stuff as many things as I can in my pockets, the bare necessities. They say a C-collar on the thigh, going over the side on these ropes with this harness and stuff felt like Robo-Medic or something.
Like that? And I just kept telling him to lean into the horse, that he was shaking a little bit at first.
Coming right over the edge, Sam.
Every part of your being tells you that you shouldn't be walking off of an 80-foot cliff backwards.
Walk backwards, Mike. You can be right over the edge, Sam. See his back. Let me know when you want me to blade. Sit in that seat. Get back a little. You're setting down too much. Sit in your seat. There you go. Right leg first. Ease back. Let me know when you need help. Ease down. Press wide if you have to. Sam!
First few steps were the worst.
Little slack?
Ease in that horse. Watch the rock behind your back. How's it going, Sam? Doing great. All right. Center the horn. Good job. Good job. Good job. Watch that right there. There's a big track.
We almost all held our breath as it came down until he got to that ledge and unhooked. It was just like a collective sigh of relief when he got there.
When someone asks me, where do you get your EMTs, I tell them I get EMTs in the correctional center. I train actual inmates of the institution.
What am I going to do? Say, well, I'm an armed robber, been in prison for 5 years, and I've only been on the job 30 days. By the way, I've never used any of this ropes before, so just trust me, it'll be all right.
It's never in anyone's mind that we're working with inmates. Mike's a neat guy, he's a friend of his partner's an EMT.
Yeah, it's about 20 feet.
When we stood Oliver up in the basket, and he went over the edge. I said, "But you're in good hands, and it's up to us now. You just relax and enjoy the ride."
Looking good. How's your legs? You clear from down there? It's good.
It's kind of rough sometimes. Your heart goes out to these people. And once they leave your hands, you wonder, did I do what I should have done?
Hang in there, buddy.
You hope that you did everything right.
You all right, man?
He was in a lot of pain, and I was just telling him how grateful I was that he was alive, and that I was just so glad that he was there talking to me.
22-year-old Oliver Miner suffered a fractured pelvis and a punctured lung and was hospitalized for 8 days. "3 months have passed since the incident.
When I first woke up, I was scared, figuring out what I'd done to myself, how bad I was hurt. From that point on, I've minimized the risks I've taken. I am not as much of a fool as I was before. He's changed. It's got him to realize that life's important to him. He's gotten to where he thinks a little bit more. That's all we ask of him anyway.
Very good. I'm impressed.
Oliver's mother, Cheryl Gayer, is grateful to his rescuers.
For a long time, I wasn't married, and it was just him and me against the world. Very good. You haven't broke one yet. We're soulmates. We're really close for a mother and a son. And I just could not imagine a life without Oliver.
Mike Judd is the one that brought you off the cliff. I think we ought to make a toast to him. Cheers to you.
I didn't learn about Mike's current living place until later, but it does not lower my opinion of him in the least bit. If it wasn't for him, I don't know where I would be at now. He was so great. I love you.
At the time of the accident, Mike Judds was an inmate at Vienna Correctional Center, a minimum security prison. He now has a job on the outside as an EMT.
I lost a portion of my life, and having lost that, I've come to realize how much life means and how short it is. Now he's getting tired. Being able to help somebody out, if I can add to their life, man, it's great. Because I know how much it means to have that.
You have to communicate. Leonard Oliver is also part of the inmate program. He too plans to continue working as an EMT when he is released.
And I really appreciate the chance to help people. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel real good. Feel proud of myself. I don't have to have anybody else feel proud of me. I feel proud of me.
The inmates are just as highly motivated as any other EMTs I've trained. As a matter of fact, some of them, I think, become even more dedicated. I think that some of them has told me that they feel that this is a way that they can atone for some of their past mistakes by serving others.
With the real chest.
For 20 years, Johnson County has been served by an ambulance service that's staffed by inmates. We think it's a good program. We think the guys should be judged on their merits, not on their past.
You know, people think going out there and screwing up and committing crimes or breaking the law is fun and exciting, but there's nothing as exciting as saving a life. Nothing compares.
T-shirt dress?
Next.
She could actually look inside the chest. He was gray, his lips were blue, he's dying. There's nothing you're going to be able to do for him.
Take a look at these age spots. They seem to vanish right before your eyes. 10 skin. All new handheld premium gifts. 5 years helping. Breeze is touchless.
Makeup application I've ever got.
All too easy for everyday items to become weapons.
To getbreeze.com.
Children don't automatically know the uses and hazards of things around the house. So it's all too easy for everyday items to become weapons in their hands. As Patty Ritter found out on August 13th, 1992, at her home in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I think I'm going to just put
It's okay, Ryan. I was giving my 1-year-old Ryan a bath in the kitchen sink. I was talking on the telephone, chit-chatting. Yeah.
Shanna Rathbone had been dating Patty's oldest son for about a year. During that time, she'd become close to his 4-year-old brother, Alex.
I was sitting in the family room with my boyfriend Mark, and his little brother came in and asked me to help him wash his hands in the bathroom. So I walked him back. I feel like a member of the family. They've always made me feel like a member of the family from the first day I ever came over. That's just how the Ritters are.
Sure. Whatever time you want to pick me, that's fine with me.
I looked at his chest. It was just a small drop of blood, so I took the washcloth and I dabbed it.
Patty screamed horrendously. I looked at Alex and I saw this hole right in his chest. You could see straight down through his chest. It was just like a big tongue just straight.
Union Township dispatcher Eileen Beatty was on duty by herself that afternoon.
It was a very hysterical woman saying that her young son had been stabbed and he had pulled the scissors out himself. And I started to worry because I've always been told that if you're stabbed with something, it's best to leave it in.
Rescue units with the Union Township Fire Department were immediately dispatched to the scene.
She told me to apply pressure to the wound.
Okay, please hurry.
And I hung the phone up.
Alex.
It was just like a limp wash rag in your hand. I was getting more hysterical as the time went on. And then luckily, for some God-given reason, my husband came home.
I pulled in the driveway and Bart came up to told me Alex had gotten hurt. I thought, we'll take him to the doctors, get stitches, and then that'll be the end of that.
Listen to me.
What happened?
Keep throwing my haircut.
I pulled the rag away from his chest. You could actually look inside the chest. He was gray, his lips were blue. The last thing he said to me was, I'm sleepy. And that was it.
Among those responding to the call was paramedic Jeff Jackson.
About halfway there, our dispatcher called us back and advised us that the child has been turning blue, which immediately heightened our response. This child has been stabbed, he could be in a cardiac arrest, and we're thinking the worst.
Yeah, you're real listless. I didn't know what to do for him. You're holding your son and he's dying. There's nothing you're going to be able to do for him.
Alex.
Yeah, I hear him. About that time, I heard the life squad.
When the father first came out of the house, I immediately recognized who he was. Mark had been on the fire department with me a number of years ago, and ironically, he left the fire department because he could not deal with injured and sick children.
What's his name?
As soon as I looked at the child, I knew he was in a life-threatening situation. Blew around the lips, blew around the fingertips, which immediately tells me that his body is shutting down.
Your wife here too?
Paramedic Pam Kratzer asked to see the scissors.
The blood on the scissors was 2 inches up, so we realized that it had punctured at least 2 inches into his body. That means they could have not only punctured his lungs and his heart, but have also gone into his spine.
Okay, Dad, I need you to hand Alex to me.
The father did not want to release the child from his arms, and I thought, how could I ask this father to lay this child down, knowing that this may be the last time he can hold him?
I need you folks to go right now and meet us down there. He's going to be
They just kept saying, we need you to leave. And I can't help thinking that he was dying. And they wanted us out of the way. They didn't want us to be there when he died.
Alex was taken to the nearest open field, where he was met by a University Air Care helicopter. The medical team on board included flight nurse Carol Downing.
At the time, the child was in extreme shock, wasn't breathing well, and his blood pressure was very, very low. The best thing to do was to get him to the operating room at Children's Hospital.
When they were reeling him in, we got to take a look at him. You want to talk to him, but you can't. And I thought that probably would be the last time that I would get to see him.
TJ, let's get the sternal sore ready.
At Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, 4-year-old Alex went directly to the operating room where surgery was performed by Dr. Victor Garcia.
Literally every second mattered, because if you have uncontrolled bleeding in the chest, then the greater the likelihood that the bleeding would result in irreversible consequences that would ultimately kill the child.
Anesthesia, we're starting. Hard times are fading.
Once we opened the chest, we found that there was blood inside the sac around the heart. It only takes a small amount of blood in the pericardium to interfere with the ability of the heart to pump.
Go ahead and talk to him just the way you normally would.
They had to cut him from the top of the chest all the way down to his groin area. He had 45 staples down his little tiny body. He looked pathetic. I wanted to pick him up and Kiss his whole face.
Here, say, giddy up, Flicka.
Giddy up, Flicka.
All right.
A year has passed since the incident.
Now I know why. We were always told growing up, don't run with scissors. If I had any advice to give to people, I would say make sure that the scissors are put up.
Scissors and dance tools and all those objects that we just use on an everyday basis and don't think about, we need to think as those as lethal weapons.
I'm very proud of my son for coming and telling my wife he had fell on these scissors. If it wouldn't have been for him coming, he could have went out in the yard and died. I thought about being an EMT, but that takes a different breed of people, I think. And they saved my son's life. I think that people are great.
You train all your life to help people, and this was one instance that you really did help a child.
Oh, okay. When I see him out playing, it's amazing. Look at him. I mean, he's got a scar, but that's okay. That's a battle scar to him. He shows everybody.
I know.
Yesterday, the doctor cut me, coming down to about there. And I burned up there.
Alright.
And I was going to put scissors again because they could hurt you.
Look at the top of the tree.
I almost lost him. And that's probably why he's pretty spoiled right now.
Oh.
I can't even imagine my life without Alex. I can't even imagine.
Today on Rescue 911, a baby stops breathing
I could tell she was choking.
when a hysterical mother cries for help.
The lady started hollering, "Help me, my baby's choking."
Her child's life lies in the hands of a stranger. Plus, one's lost.
Jackie's still the same today. He's probably looking for another tree.
Crime happens every day. We're here to tell you about it. If you're a serious true crime addict, The Daily Crime has you covered. The Daily Crime, an all-new podcast from Vault Studios. Today on Rescue 911, a torrential downpour, a flash flood.
We thought we had all the right equipment that we're going to need.
Becomes a raging river.
Got on scene, it's a whole different story.
Rescuers race time and the elements.
We knew the time was very short and very critical.
Plus, a skating accident leaves a boy crushed.
The turning of the tires must have pulled him apart.
On Rescue 911.
We begin in northern Texas, where a series of rainstorms
had pounded the area around Gainesville throughout the spring, leaving the land heavily saturated, the rivers and creeks overflowing. Most of the footage in this story was taped as the events unfolded on the afternoon of May 9th, 1993.
It's about as flooded as I've ever seen it. We have a healthy respect for rushing water. I've seen water move houses out into the middle of the street in my town.
Around 11:25 a.m., an alarm sent Gainesville Fire Captain Malcolm Foster and firefighter Al Brew out into the storm.
We heard the call for 2 women stranded in a suburban in high water. We thought we had all the right ropes and all of the right equipment that we're going to need, and we're going to bring these ladies back, and yeah, we're all going to get wet and have to take a shower when we get back to the station, but that's no big deal. Got on scene, it's a whole different story. This thing is raging, man. We've got this travel trailer on the back of this Suburban that was 4 to 5 foot deep in rushing water. There's no way that you can put anybody down in something like that because they'd be swept away immediately. To look at those ladies and see the fear in their eyes when they roll the window down and wondering what's going through their mind. And I'm thinking they're going to panic, and one of those ladies is going to...
Okay, let me go to YouTube and see, I want to see if that last live stream is live.
The gentleman at that point began to flail around a little bit to move to fight. My concern.
Go to library, go to my videos. I mean, I'm going to put the rest of the episode on. Let's see. 2,797. So I'll do 2,798, 2,799. Go to Streamium app. That's where I get my Rescue 911 live streams.
Unstoppables into your washing machine before each load and enjoy fresher smelling laundry for up to 12 weeks.
Okay.
Compete for daily cash prizes with as few as 10 picks with MLB Rally presented by BetMGM. Download MLB Rally app now. Restrictions apply. See official rules at MLB.com/rally.
I'm not even a baseball fan.
With Eduardo Perez and Aldon Gonzalez, I'm Dan Shulman. Glad you're with us. The Dodgers and the Padres. A little West Coast action for you. And the Dodgers, on the strength of a Will Smith home run, have a 1-0 lead going to the bottom of the second. Julio Urias, in his return from the IL on the mound for the Dodgers, got the Padres in order in the bottom of the first. And here is Jake Cronenworth, and what a valuable player he has been the last couple of years for San Diego. Where their needs are and where their surplus is.
I just thought it was so interesting that this guy right now is their sure thing in the lineup when you talk about knowing that Machado is going to be there, knowing that Fernando Tatis, when healthy, he's going to be in there. Jake Cronenworth is a big part of their offense. Guarantee that he puts the ball in play, gives you tough at-bats. And last year, coming into spring training, 1.0. He was actually on the mound, throwing 95 as well. He was a two-way type player. Such a really good baseball player all around.
Mother's Day flood, rollerblade.
Maybe it's a bullpen game. They've already used a couple.
Resume. Sometimes it doesn't play, and you gotta do it a couple times. Rather than start from the beginning, I don't want to start over.
To jump out and try to swim out. And I know that they can't. Not in this water. Okay.
When we continued,
What was holding them on the other side was a guardrail, so that could be washed away and we would have a body recovery.
Which of these meals 15 minutes to prepare? All of them. Gobble does the planning and prep work for you.
Was every year.
Getting to the victims was by the air. The closest helicopter area here is out of Dallas, and we figured it's probably 45 minutes away.
Sometimes you have to write the script as the movie goes along. And we decided the best bet was to take ladder apparatus, extend the ladder to these women, and take them out using the ladder as a crane.
The design of the bridge, which was under construction at the time, was very narrow. To extend the ladder fully off the side of the truck is something that's not supposed to be done. The main concern was the truck tipping over. But we knew the time was very short and very critical.
What was holding them on the other side was a guardrail, so that could be washed away along with all of the other debris involved. And we would have a body recovery instead of a rescue. Captain Foster grabbed the rescue harness. I was at the controls of the ladder, and away we went.
Neighborhood resident Ray Russell had put in the first call for help.
I have been great Captain Foster himself that he might not survive going into the Suburban, which was subject to being ripped loose any moment.
I get Captain Foster out over the Suburban. He breaks the back window out, goes into the Suburban, and attaches life jackets and life belts to these ladies, and brings the first lady out. Everybody's giving me the signal to go up. I'm already trying it. The ladder won't work.
The ladder was fully extended, just 75-foot ladder. And you put away two people in that ladder coming off the side. Our outriggers aren't designed to carry that type of load.
The wheels actually came off the ground at one time before all these volunteers climbed all over the opposite side of the fire truck to counteract that leverage. My concern was that the whole crew and the truck and everything might end up in the creek.
I was starting to get real worried. We decided to go to a manual operation, which is just a crank. As soon as we got the ladder moving, the hydraulics took back over, and we got the first victim out. I'm not liking it, but I know we got to do it again. Captain Foster gives me the thumbs up. I say, okay, guys, this is same song, second verse. The people around were noticing more guardrails, more pylons, more shoring material washing away from this bridge. So even the bridge that we were on seemed unstable. When we got the second lady almost back to the bridge, the ladder seemed to stop. Finally, somebody reached out and pulled them in.
After nearly an hour trapped in the rushing floodwaters, 76-year-old Marguerite Johnson and her daughter Judy Duncan were finally safe.
There was a lot of high fives and handshaking and pats on the back.
I am a veteran myself of 20 years with the Dallas Fire Department, and I have seen many brave acts. That was the bravest I've ever witnessed, that act by Captain Foster.
I really thought it was going to be a simpler rescue than what it turned out to be. If I'd had another option that I thought would work, we would probably tried it.
The Suburban and the trailer are lost. My fire truck was bent up a little bit and scratched up a little bit, but that's okay too, just as long as they're out and they're okay.
Both women were examined and released without injuries. Judy then got a chance to call her husband, Carl.
One weekend we went out to go on a road trip. She hadn't called or showed up, and I wondered what that might be. So I asked her, what kind of problem did you have? She said, well, we had a little water problem.
Recently, Judy Duncan and her mother, Marguerite Johnson, got a chance to thank the men who saved their lives that day.
Oh, I'm out. Well, I was wondering if I was going to get another one.
The water rose so quickly that suddenly it was just coming in under the door. Suddenly it filled the front seat. I just knew when that fire truck came, no problem. That everything was okay.
After when Judy got down to Suburban, she's carrying her purse, and where do you put this? And I said, she said, well, if we fall. I said, well, if we fall, we're both going. You know, my guys, they actually rescued us instead of me rescuing the women.
I feel really grateful to them. I really do. And I feel like somebody really made some split decisions that were very good and saved two people's lives.
We kept a lot of people busy that afternoon, didn't we?
Y'all are real fortunate that car got set.
And I hope that I'm never put in that situation again. But at least if I am, I know the limits of the equipment. And I also know that I don't think there's any limits to the guys that I work around. Everybody was giving all they had, and it worked.
Yeah, me too. You know, it's something that I guess all firefighters live for, because the heart's beating.
Home broadband is critical for connecting to jobs, healthcare services, virtual classrooms, and much more. To afford your internet bills, a temporary government program may be able to help. Emergency broadband benefit at www.educationsuperhighway.org.
Do nothing, and your blood's flowing real well. It's what I love to do. I love rescue.
Next.
It took me maybe about 3 or 4 seconds to focus on who it was laying on the street, and when I saw his back, I thought, there was my little brother.
Watch how Luminesce seems to blur away completely and commit warranty. Foundations that hold everything. 4-color lip cream. Shipping and counting down to
On July 20th, 1992, the day before Taylor Hall was going to celebrate his 7th birthday, the one gift he had wanted most arrived at his home in Corona, California. His mother Julie, his father, and his 5 sisters and brothers shared his excitement, never once imagining what might happen after he opened the box.
We never allow our children to open their presents before their birthday. But my husband Steve was going out of town. And I said, okay, we'll let you open your present. Unbeknownst to me, the kids told me later that he did skate around the house. He loves skates, and he lives on them. But I don't think there's a day where he's not skated.
The oldest of the Hall 6 children is 18-year-old Chris.
The next day, Taylor came in and he just started begging and begging and begging. Oh, Mom, please let me go out and play. And finally, I just got fed up. I go, Mom, just let him go. Give him the rollerblades, let the kid go out and play. He'll be fine. It's no big deal. You know, hey, he'll be all right, you know.
He literally wore me down, and I said, okay. He could go out and just show his friends, and then he had to come back to do his work.
I looked out the door and there was a guy sitting on the street just screaming. It took me maybe about 3 or 4 seconds to focus on who it was laying on the street. And when I saw his back, when I could see his spine, I thought there was my little brother in just a flash of a second.
When I heard the scream, I felt something that mothers never want to feel, that something's really bad wrong. I guess I was wishing that it wasn't him.
Into the middle of his back, I could see it split open. The first reaction I had was just keep him from moving. He was in so much pain. He just kept saying, I'm gonna die. I just wanted to say, Taylor, I love you, Taylor, I love you, Taylor. I just want you to die. I don't want you to die.
Don't move, it's gonna be okay, bud.
His legs were just limp. And he had tire tracks embedded in his legs.
Stay all right, Joe, you're gonna be okay.
He was saying, it hurts, Mommy, it hurts, Mommy.
You're gonna be all right.
And that was tough. You never want to hear that from your child.
Within 3 minutes of the call, the Corona Fire Department arrived at the scene, led by EMT Captain Mark Kipley.
Coming down the street, I see a water truck sitting there. And my first thought in my head is, oh no. The amount of traumatic injury that could be involved with a delivery water truck that's estimated weight at about 15,000 pounds, that puts the intensity right to the ceiling.
Moments later, an advanced life support unit arrived, including paramedic Curtis James.
He had a tearing type of laceration that traveled down the middle of his buttocks and stopped just behind his scrotum. The turning of the tires must have rotated him to a point where it just kind of pulled him apart.
1, 2, 3.
He knows something's wrong, and he knows he's hurt. He looks right at your eyes like, help me. Because he's looking for you to take him out of this terrible mess. You don't even know if he's going to make it. And that hits you right in the heart.
At Riverside General Hospital, head emergency nurse Janet Petrovich was part of the trauma team.
X-rays on your way.
The thing that scared me the most was because of the extensive lacerations and the fact that it covered bone and his gut and his muscle tissue, we were afraid that infection could kill him. He said, I'm scared. And then he said he was afraid that he might die. When a patient says that, we get really, they have a feeling that something's going wrong. We try to reassure them as much as possible, but sometimes we just have to keep our fingers crossed that they're not right.
They told us that they wouldn't know all the extent of his injuries until they went in and really saw what was going on. But I didn't care because he was alive.
Taylor underwent 2.5 hours of surgery. He was transferred to Kaiser Permanente Medical Center, where Robert Rudick took over his care.
The biggest fears that we had on admission were that he just would not be able to walk and wouldn't be able to eliminate waste. To divert the fecal stream, he had to have a colostomy. He also had a tube in his bladder that would allow his urine to come out. They're very traumatic psychologically to parents and certainly to a child.
His sister Angela and the rest of the Hall children came to visit him.
He was in intensive care and they wouldn't let us see him. We walked around the outside of the hospital and we found his room.
Hi, is that your family? What's up?
He wanted to reach out, he wanted to grab him, he wanted to hold him, and he was just sitting there strapped to all these machines.
Love you.
And blew my kiss goodbye. And he reached out, he got it.
Okay, Taylor. We're gonna try and get you.
Within 6 days of the accident, Taylor had made remarkable progress.
We knew that his bones were healing. All his other wounds were healing as well, and he was really getting cabin fever, wanted to move around, wanted to prove to everybody that he was able to do this. Basically, I said, why not? Let's get going.
Now, what I want you to do is I want you to step it this way first. There you go. Good job.
I honestly didn't think he was up to it, but he just wanted it so bad.
You're walking. Way to go, buddy.
He was going to walk again. That was the most wonderful feeling in the world.
7-year-old Taylor Hall spent nearly 4 weeks in the hospital and underwent months of painful physical therapy.
It's been a year since the accident, and Taylor is incredible. His doctors say that he's a walking miracle. There's no reason that he should be alive. And I don't know why I am so lucky to keep him.
I felt like I was jello and like I was gonna die. But then everybody came out and started helping me. I don't like it when I got run over one day before my birthday.
I think for rollerblade safety, all the safety gear should be worn all the time, because you never know when you're going to take that spill. Learning to stop and where to ride. Those things need to be addressed every time they take them out.
Taylor's father, Steve, is proud of how his son has proven he can overcome obstacles.
He loves to roller skate, ice skate. Basically all the things that he did before, he still does now. He just doesn't run as fast or as fluid as he used to. He's got a real positive attitude about things. I don't think there was ever, in his mind, a thought that he wouldn't get better.
I never thought in a million years that he would be the way he is today. What he's accomplished and what he's done, and the miracle that he's still alive just makes him one of the most special kids that I know. I'm ecstatic to have him back. I love him.
They're the first ones called in, after which.
Okay, now I'm gonna delete all the Rescue 911 bids that I put up here. Bullet wound, neighbor, brush fire rescue, move, cold, cardiac, put that on here too. I put that, I didn't put that one on here, I put this one on here. Let's trimmer, electrocution. I put Swiss Army knife on there too. I go down to more Rescue 911 episodes. I put Toothbrush Trauma on there, Harley Walks the Ball, Austin Abuse Documentary. I put Scissor Save on here, Track and Field Save, didn't put that one on here. Didn't put Knoxville Murder, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 episodes left of Rescue 911. Okay, I'm gonna go to CVS because in less than an hour it will be closing. YouTube.